What is happening? What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? We are live from another live stream vid. Just first things first, I just want to wish everyone a very great weekend. I hope everyone is safe and happy and spending some time with your loved ones. And of course, hope you enjoyed the boxing weekend that we've had so far this Saturday. I mean, not too much going on, but definitely some bit of excitement over the week, over last Saturday's cards, whatnot. So I think first things first, I want to start going down the pecking order. I know the Florian Marku fight took place on Friday because it was in Albania, so I guess that was Saturday over here for most places. I don't know, but I didn't watch that card. I know Florian Marku scored the knockout win, but there's not much I can cover about that fight. That was a matchroom card in Albania, so yeah, looks like matchroom is still continuing their global aspirations by their aspirations to have a global outreach in other continents of the world or territories of the world. So yeah, uh, so I want to go down the list of certain things going over the this weekend's events, especially Top Rank because they had a card that took place. So we're gonna start with Jared Anderson, Efe Ajagba, and Richard Torrez Jr. scoring knockouts yesterday under the Jose Pedraza and Richard Commey card, which is unique because you had three heavyweights under undercard of light welterweights. But to be fair, Pedraza and Commey are bigger names than these three guys as we speak, because as of right now, they're still in their prospective stage. So let's start with Richard Torrez Jr. He scored a first round knockout win over his opponent. It was a very ugly knockout too. Ugh, that was terrible. But it is what it is. He goes now 3-0. Richard Torres is a silver medalist in the Olympics. He's a southpaw and he's a very small heavyweight. He's not the biggest heavyweight out there, but he's pretty small in standards and attributes. So but the one thing I would say though, he is a bit wild with his shots. He needs to kind of be more tamed. He needs to be more composed when he's throwing his punches. It's like every punch he's throwing is either I don't know if it's either anxiety or it's what I mean by anxiety is he's anxious when he's throwing his shots or he's a little bit nervous. He's a little bit too tight. That's what it seemed like to me in his first three bouts. But it is he is a prospect. He's still learning, so can't really fault him for that. That was his only third pro fight. Yeah, good showing. He did what he had to do. What's next for him? I don't know. But other than that, I do expect him to get at least a few more, five more fights in, probably within the next 60 days or so, just to keep him active, to keep him busy. And then we'll go from there. And by the way, what he likes to do, and this is something I've learned, is that he likes to go skydiving after every fight. So that's very interesting to keep him energized, I should say. So hey, whatever makes you feel good, do it. Like dancing, for example. That's what Alexander Usyk does. He likes to dance a lot in between fights. So it is what it is. Efe Ajagba, the last time we saw him, I think that he had a bout after the Frank Sanchez loss. So let me check. I could be wrong. Let's see. No, no. Actually, this was his first fight after, yeah, almost a year now after the Frank Sanchez loss, and he fought Joseph Dormos from Hungary and scored a second round TKO. Very interesting. Very interesting fight while it lasted. Jabba was fighting more on the back foot because his opponent was pressuring him, and he was starting to show a multiplicity of skills. He was working behind his jab a lot better. He was showing a multiplicity of punches and technique. So there's definitely some improvements there. But the one thing I worry about with Ajaba is that he's still slow footed and his punches are still running are pretty slow. So yeah, there's still some work that need to be done there with Ajaba. So I think at this point where I think what they're doing with him at this point is that they're really not going to rush him back into a top 10 heavyweight fight at the moment because, again, that Frank Sanchez fight was a terrible matchup for him. And I did applaud him for taking that fight. It was a good fight that we need to. I think at the time you could say he was a bit ready for a test, but I think that was a bridge too far, in my opinion. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm glad that fight happened. It was a good fight, but Jabba was just overmatched by Frank Sanchez, a guy who's, had a great amateur pedigree, who's vastly experienced, technically is far superior than him. We've seen that in that fight. So Yeah. So it looks like at this point they're not going to rush him back into a top 10 heavyweight fight at the moment. They're going to just take their time with him so that way he can slowly progress with his technique and skill. So I expect him to fight a couple more guys who are who are not on who are on the caliber of a Joseph Dormus. Give him a couple, three more fights to build his confidence, and then rush him back into not necessarily not rush him back, but necessarily fight a top 10 guy, but maybe like top 15 at best. Just to move him gradually, as you want to say. So, yeah, he did what he had to do. He scored a second round TKO win over Dormos, and that was, he did focus on the body bit more than head hunting. So I would have to give him some bit of credit there because he beat Dormos to the body, and yeah, he scored a knockout victory with the body shot. So yeah. So the next one was Jared Anderson. He was next up on the card before the main event, and he scored a second round TKO victory or knockout, I should say. It was actually a knockout over Makunin, and Makunin was actually a good test for him because Makunin had he had a very good amateur pedigree. He went into the fight with two losses on his record. He was in the ring with fights of Alexander Demetrenko and Ajagba. Both those fights ended. One of those fights ended in DQ disqualification. That was against Demetrenko, and another one he lost in a third round TKO against Ajagba. And which is kind of interesting because Caballero is not known to be a big puncher, but it is what it is. So yeah, I thought Makuna would take him to long into later rounds, but I would say though, although that fight lasted only 2 rounds, but Jared Anderson, yeah, he did what he had to do to score the knockout win. But the one thing I would say though is that he was getting hit a lot more than to my liking because he was getting touched up by Makunin. While that fight lasted, he was getting touched up pretty good. The one thing I would say about Jerry Anderson is in his flaws of his technique is that he needs to start moving his head because he was getting hit in the head way too much than my liking. Yeah, he took the punches very well, but I just think that he needs to work on that. He needs to work on defense. I know he's more of an offensive minded guy. Yeah, it is the heavyweights because there's no such thing as a defensive minded heavyweight in these today's standards. I mean, Alexander Usyk comes close to that, but other than that, he's a volume puncher guy. But yeah, I would think that yeah, if anything, Jerry Anderson needs to work on it. He needs to work on his defense. He needs to work on head movement and upper body movement too, because that was non-existent in that fight against Bakunin. I mean, even his previous fights, he didn't really show much of that. And to be fair, because the guys he was fighting, it really didn't even pose any opposition towards him. So, yeah, I think this was a good test for him. He did come through a second round knockout against Bakunin, guy who was vastly experienced as an amateur. As a pro, not so much success, but even though he's been in there with guys like Demchenko and Caballero, so yeah, this was a good test for him. But other than that, he does need to work on his upper body movement. He needs to work on head movement and so forth. So that's the only thing that Jared Anderson needs to work on. And another thing too is that he's putting a lot of power on every shot that he throws, like the jabs, the body hooks, and everything. I think he needs to work on touching up his opponents more so than just loading up on every shot. So, yeah. No, now we're moving on to the Jose Pedraza and Richard Commey fight. Now, going into this fight, there was some bit of controversy, particularly Richard Commey, and the controversy is that he's not at good terms right now with the Gun and Boxing Authority, which is the GBA. Recently, they suspended him. They suspended him back earlier this year due to his misconduct, allegedly misconduct and disrespect toward his boxing promoter over there. And furthermore, the reason why he's not on good terms with the GBA is because he has refused to pay his incentives to the boxing outreach or the community over in Ghana. And Come's protested that, from what I've read, and he's also upset to the fact that he has not got any support, particularly from his buddy Joshua Clottey. He felt that Clottey should have defended him in that situation with the GBA, the dispute, I should say, and it's not gone anywhere. And furthermore, to add to that controversy, is that the GBA has threatened Commey that you cannot walk, to the ring or any of your fights in the United States or anywhere else. You cannot walk to the ring with the Ghanaian flag. They warned him not to do that, and he did it anyway yesterday. But it is what it is. But Gane's not Gane. Commey's protested that. He's argued the fact that he showed nothing but support and respect for the boxing community over in Ghana, and supposedly that he hasn't paid his incentives as he's required to do, which inspired him to fight the way he did against Pedraza yesterday. Now, let me get into this. What's up, Boxing Lounge? Let me get into the fight. Now, this is how I scored it. Well, before I go into the final score, but this is how I scored it round by round. The first round I gave to Commey. I thought he was more active. He landed more of the accurate shots. But, according to the punch stats, Pedraza landed 18 punches and Commey landed only 12. Now, to me, I didn't see how Pedraza landed 18 punches, but it is what it is. But I didn't give Pedraza that round. Yes, he did have some success, but I thought Commey bossed that round, in my opinion. But I didn't see where Pedraza landed 18 punches compared to Commey's 12. I mean, that's bizarre, but it is what it is. The second round, Pedraza came on a little bit. I did give him that round because he was more active. He was giving Commey more angles, confusing him a little bit. Third round, I gave to Commey because he landed more of the powerful shots and he stunned Pedraza momentarily in that round. Round 4 was a little bit even, but I edged towards Pedraza. Round 5, Pedraza. Round 6, Pedraza. He started to take over because Commey was starting to weaken, and part of the reason why he was weakening because Pedraza was landing, was very effective with the body punching because he landed a lot of body punches in that fight against Commey. And to be fair, Commey was being aggressive on the front foot, but the problem is that he was not landing enough punches and he was not focusing on the body. So that's why he was getting caught with body shots, and particularly and the angles and the agility of Pedraza. And pretty much, I scored all the remaining rounds after the fourth round to Pedraza because I thought he controlled the fight. And more so to the fact that Commey suffered a cut above his left eye, and that was due to a headbutt. I don't know why the commission ruled it a punch, but that was weird, but it is what it is. But anyways, going to the cards, I gave Pedraza 8 rounds to 2. If you want to give Commey the benefit of doubt, 7 rounds to 3 at best. But there was no way he won more than 2 or 3 rounds in that fight. And the judges scored it a draw. One judge gave the fight to Commey. I'm like, what in the hell? I think one judge scored at 6-4, and the other gave Pedraza 7-3, and then one judge scored at 5-5. There was no way that was a split decision draw. No way. No way in hell. Split decision draw. I mean, Commey did not win that fight at all. And I like Richard Commey, but I'm just keeping it real for what it is. He got the benefit of the doubt, maybe because of the situation he's going through with Ghana. I don't know. But let's be truthful here. Let's call for what it is. There was no way he won that fight or earned a draw. He didn't. It was not a close fight at all. I thought it was competitive, I would say at least. It was a very competitive fight. It was a very entertaining fight, but Pedraza won that fight. I thought he was the one who, controlled the pace of the fight. He, had the ring generalship. Obviously, he landed way more punches than Commey. He landed more jabs than Commey. Landed more power punches than Commey. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, the fight I hate to say this, but Pedraza got robbed from a decision. He deserved it. It was a good crossroads fight between the two. But yeah, he didn't deserve that. That's just my opinion. But it is what it is. Should a rematch be warranted between these two? No, not at the moment. I mean, right now, let them go their separate ways and let them continue with their career, especially at 140. But it is what it is. We'll see. Where these two land as far as their next fight is concerned. But again, that was not a draw. Commey didn't deserve that draw. Pedraza was the rightful winner. Many people's eyes, in my eyes, just at least. But other than that, it is what it is. Now moving on, Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury undisputed fight in 2023. Now, this is very interesting because Bob Arum had came out and said that he doesn't see that fight being made at the end of this year as it was initially reported. So he's came out and said that he's eyeing to have this fight locked in for either February or March of next year of 2023. Now, that right there is going to be a problem there because if that's the case, that they've already sorted out the mandatory situations with the WBA and the IBF. And the reason why I'm asking this question is because the WBA is rumored to call their mandatory. And I think they were going to call that mandatory as either Daniel Dubois or the winner of Michael Hunter versus Huey Fury, which is scheduled for next few weeks. But if the WBA is not going to call that mandatory, the IBF is definitely going to call it because Phil Herkovich is the mandatory challenger. And we all know the IBF doesn't play games because once they call that mandatory, that's it. It's set in stone. And I'm really concerned about that because Alexander Usyk has made it clear that if he doesn't get the Fury fight, then he's not fighting at all. Now, now given those circumstances, there's a possibility that if the IBF call that mandatory or the WBA, one of those two, if they call that mandatory, then I expect, and I God forbid if I'm wrong here, I think that Alexander Usyk is going to vacate one of those belts. I think he is, and that's going to be a sad situation because and to be fair, it's not surprising to me if that's the case because I didn't expect this undisputed fight to happen in the year anyway. I didn't expect it at all because it's just that it's just too much bickering going on, and the fact that the sanctioned bodies are losing patience over this situation. And they've losing their patience, and I just think that I just think that that's that was going to be the case anyway. I hope I'm wrong in this situation, but I just think that they're going to call that mandatory because they're not going to wait till 2023 for that undisputed fight to happen. They're going to call that mandatory because we're in August right now, and we're about 5-6 months away. They're not going to wait. I just really hope that they could they could sort that out and let them wait 5-6 months. I really hope that's the case because it was just far too long. We should have had this undisputed fight happen a long time ago. Not necessarily with Fury and Usyk. What I'm saying is with Fury Joshua, with Wilder Joshua, we have waited long enough as fighting fans. And I just think that the sanctioned bodies need to have a good conscience to just allow Fury Usyk to negotiate and let them get this thing sorted out. But I hate to be a pessimist in this situation. I just don't see the sanctions bodies having any more patience for that, especially with that debacle of Fury and Joshua. I think the IBF is going to call that mandatory or the WBA. It's one of those two. I really, really, really good. I really see that's happening, given the fact that Bob Aaron's come out and said that that December fight may not go down. It's not going to happen. Now, to be fair, Bob Aaron has said a lot of things that you can take for a grain of salt. So let's just hope that he's bullshitting us and he's pulling our wig over that. But if that's the case, then yeah, the mandatories is going to be called. Tony Reviews, sub hoplo type. Tony Reviews it says that none of the sanctioned bodies will call their mandatories mandos for Fury Usyk. They're not going to rush to lose their bag. I get what you're saying on that, but at the end of the day, they're going to get their bag anyway. Because if you think about it, let's just say hypothetically they do mandate one of their fights. They're getting a sanction fee one way or the other. Let's say Usyk does come through his mandatory fights, which I expect him to do, because I expect him to beat Filip Herkovich. I think Herkovich's style is tailor made for Usyk. And the WBA, let's just say hypothetically, Michael Hunter is the winner. I don't see Huey Fury beating Hunter. Let's just say hypothetically, Huey Fury and Michael Hunter. One of those two is the mandatory challenger. I mean, Usyk beat Hunter already. He knows his style, so I don't see Usyk having a problem with Hunter. I mean, it may be a little bit more difficult fight than last time, but I still don't see him have too much of an issue with Hunter. But Huey Fury, yeah, I think that's an easy fight for Usyk if he's a mandatory challenger. But let's just say hypothetically that Usyk gets through either one of those fights, and then we have the undisputed fight between Usyk and Fury. They're still getting their bag either way. They're making double the bag. So, yeah, I know this. There's a theory that not a theory. I know the undisputed Trump's mandatories. I get it, but at the end of the day, that's up to the sanctioned bodies to decide whether the undisputed fight supersedes their mandatories. That's their decision to make because they do have a discretionary power to allow the undisputed fight to go ahead over the mandatories. That's their decision to make. Boxing Lounge says, when was the last undisputed heavyweight defended their status? Was it Lennox Lewis? Well, technically, Lennox didn't defend that status. And the reason why I say that is because when he beat Evander Holyfield, right, he was the undisputed champion at the time. Now, after the Holyfield fight, the WBA called the mandatory challenger for that belt, and that was John Ruiz. Lewis didn't want to fight Ruiz for some reason because I think there was a dispute with Don King. and Lewis did not want to oblige to it, so he vacated. I think he was stripped, or he vacated the belt. I think he was stripped. I think he was stripped of the WBA title. So instead, Lennox Lewis went and fought Michael Grant instead of John Ruiz. And so with that said, yeah, no heavyweight has defended their undisputed crown. And I think the last guy to do that was Evander Holyfield. And that was back in 92 against Riddick Bowe. Yes, Lewis was the undisputed champion, but he never defended undisputed crown because he was stripped because he refused to fight John Ruiz for the WBA. That's a good point you made there, a good question that you had presented, Boxing Lounge, because yeah, we haven't had a undisputed crown in heavyweight defended since Evander Holyfield. That was back in 1992, 30 years ago. Wow, that's an interesting fact. Let's see here. I agree with Tony on this one. Apollo says they will make more money on the undisputed fight. The IBF is the one that usually ruins it for anyone. Yeah, I mean, look, potentially they do, but at the end of the day, they're kind of double dipping, as I pointed out. Even if they mandate the fight, they're still going to make their sanction fees one way or the other. Let's say Usyk does get past Herkovich, what I expect him to do, because I don't see Herkovich beating him. But other than that, they're still making their money either way. They're double dipping, as you want to call it. Yeah, Fury nor Usyk will fight the Mandos. They will vacate. They both have made that clear. If they vacate the body, vacate the bodies, make zero money. Yeah, I know they're trying to strong arm the sanctioned bodies in the situation, trying to get them to understand. I get it, but the one that you need to worry about is the IBF, because that's not the one you want to mess with. Because when the IBF call their mandatories, they're very serious about it. They don't play. So, but to be fair with the IBF, they have had some understanding to some circumstances, to some situations, like with Julius Ndongo and the Terrence Crawford situation. They were threatening to intervene in that matter, but they did. Eddie Hearn did petition them to make them understand that get this undisputed fight going, and they did. They were guaranteed, look, whoever's the winner of that undisputed fight, the mandatory is next, and that was the case. So maybe the IBF can come to saying terms on the situation, come to an understanding there, but usually they're not the ones to mess with when it comes to the IBF mandatory. Now the WBA is an interesting one too, because they haven't had a mandatory defense since 2018. That's 4 years now. And the last guy that was the WBA mandatory was Alexander Povetkin. Whatnot. So yeah, that is a very, very yeah. These mandatories, they're going to be called. I mean, the WBO, that was Alexander Usyk, that was last year. So the WBO, Joe Joyce, you probably have to wait another year for that one. But the WBA and the IBF are the ones that you were going to have to worry about this moment, because Bob Harris talked about 2023. When you hear that, the sanction bodies is not going to want to hear that. They're like, well, if it's 2023 and that's about where's 6 months from now? You're talking about February or March, that's 6-7 months. Now, they're not going to wait. That's just the way I see it. And I hope that both parties can, get these sanctioned bodies to cooperate and get them to understand that we'll get the fight happen. We promise you that. Whoever's the winner of that fight, the mandatory will be due right after that. I hope they've made that deal. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Meanwhile, we're going to have to talk about this one. Robert Garcia. He made some interesting comments after the Anthony Joshua fight, which is, his second loss to Alexander Usyk. He said that Anthony Joshua is not mentally strong. Now, he did make, he alluded to something like this before the fight, but he went further to like really, really, really dig into Anthony Joshua, which is, some people argue was, he's throwing him under the bus. But as far as I'm concerned, it's like no one's really surprised about his comments at all, because they are pretty truthful about Anthony Joshua and his mentality. Now, I will defend Joshua in this instance, but let me just go ahead and read this quote for quote, because he gave an interview with his publication called IZ Cordozo. I think it is a Mexican publication. I never heard of them, but it is what it is. But this is what Robert Garcia said here. Quote, he said that Joshua was mentally defeated since round 10 or 11, Garcia told IZ Cordozo. He also said, he went on to go on to say that round 10 was a big one for Usyk. That changed the whole fight, and mentally we were defeated. At that point, we were relying on a good shot or something like that, but because Anthony is a very hard puncher, and one shot can change a fight, which is true. However, that is what we were hoping for, one shot, because he was dominated at that point of the fight. The fight was going well for us, but the 10th round changed everything. The last 3 rounds of the fight were the ones that changed the fight. In the 9th round, we were close to winning, perhaps even by knockout. Though the 9th, though round 9, we were winning the fight on the judges' scorecards, but it was decided in the last rounds. Usyk is a great fighter with tremendous heart, and he knows how to finish it strong like all champions do. Joshua's strength, end quote, I should say. Now, to begin the other quote, during the 9th round, me and the guys in the corner were telling ourselves that we had the fight, Garcia said. But nothing is secured until the final bell. Yeah, ding, ding, dong. Usyk came back stronger in the 10th round, and that changed the fight. I even thought that in the last few days, it was Anthony Joshua who mentally defeated himself. Well, that's an interesting quote there. In the 9th, Joshua threw a lot of punches and almost put Usyk out. Maybe he emptied out the gas tank, but maybe it was just that Usyk came stronger and more motivated in the 10th round. We don't know. I think he was stronger to the point that he was being close to a knockout instead of giving up. He came back stronger, naming OLEKSANDR Usyk. His will and his desire to demonstrate to his country that he couldn't let himself lose the fight made him come back. He wanted to give a message to his country for everything that is happening there, and he is a big inspiration for them. His mind was what made him turn the tide in that fight and to get him to victory. And I think Anthony's mind was a bit weaker than Usyk's, because instead of going out stronger, his mind and exhaustion played games with him. Because of my own experience, I can notice when a fighter is mentally defeated. And in such a situation, instructions don't work because the fighter is not listening anymore or his mind's collapsed. What we did with Anthony was trying to motivate him by not giving him instructions how to win the fight. Okay, what? Let me read that quote again. What we did to Anthony was trying to motivate him and not giving him instructions how to win the fight. You have to instill images like his family to get him switched on, but that didn't work either. I'm going to leave it there. Wow. I mean, that is very telling right there, because I'm going to be fair to Anthony Joshua. You could give him all the instructions in the world and he will listen. But I've said this once and I'll say it again. Anthony Joshua is just not good enough to beat OLEKSANDR Usyk. He's just not. He did everything he could. He made some good tactical adjustments in that second fight, and it was very telling, and he was more gamed. Yeah, he was more mentally prepared, as I initially didn't believe going into that fight, but he's just not good enough to beat Usyk. It's just the way it is. Usyk is always going to be superior than Joshua. It's always going to be that way. There was nothing more that he could have done to win that fight. I know Robert Garcia is throwing all these comments out there as if he's throwing him under the bus, but at the end of the day, he was not going to win that fight. And the one thing I will have to say about Robert Garcia, what he did wrong, is that he lied to Joshua and told him that he was winning that fight. He was not winning that fight going into the 9th round. I don't care what the judges said. I don't care how close they had it. There was no way he was outboxing OLEKSANDR Usyk at all. Yes, he had that success in the 9th round, but to me, after the 9th round, I had a 6-3 for Usyk. Usyk was clearing out boxing the guy. It was the second fight was playing out just like the first fight was. On my final card, it was 9-3. Now, if you want to give Joshua the benefit of the doubt, maybe 4 rounds, but there was no way you could give him more than that. No more than that. So, yeah, I get where Robert Garcia is coming from, but at the end of the day, there was nothing more you could have done. I thought Joshua fought the best way he could. It's just that he was in there against a guy who was always going to be better than him. That's just the way it is. And I'm sick and tired. I hate to say this. I'm sick and tired of people running out these excuses that Joshua could have did this. He could have done that. It's like we're going back to the first fight again. There's nothing more he could have done to win that fight. He did the best he could, and he just ran out of gas. There was nothing else he could have done to win that fight. Nothing else he could have done. Usyk took Joshua's best punches in that fight. Have we forgotten that? punches that would have laid anybody out. But Usyk took it, he ate it, it kept coming at Joshua. There was nothing else he could have done to win that fight. Nothing else he could have done. So let me see here. Tony says that the very second Robert Garcia started talking badly about Joshua, he should have left him a long time. He should have left him. Who's to stick with the trainer that has zero faith in the fighter? Yeah, that's an excellent point. And it also goes back to the fact that there have been reports that they have been clashing going into training camp for a long while now, going into that fight. So, and to be fair though, you don't have to read to all that because fighters clash with trainers all the time in training camp. So just because that happens doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to win the fight. I mean, Ray Leonard clashed with his trainers a lot in sparring, in training camps. Hell, Tyson Fury clashed with some of his trainers and training, and he still wins fights. So it doesn't. You don't always have to read into that. And by the way, Alexander Usyk, he didn't necessarily clash with his trainers. He never does, but there was issues with him going into sparring, with his training camp because of his situation home in Ukraine. There's other factors going in. Usyk was kind of distracted going into this fight, but he didn't let Joshua get to him. That's how mentally strong he is. So, yeah. I really believe that Matchroom and Eddie Hearn deliberately delayed that fight because they wanted to give Joshua more time to prepare, and they wanted to slow Usyk down. And to do that, they wanted to put him in a situation, put him in Saudi Arabia where the climate is extremely hot, where the point that it would slow down Usyk's mobility. They really believed that the heat the heat was going to exhaust his mobility. Apparently, it didn't. I mean, it did to some extent, but Usyk has more gears, and he's training that heat for quite some time now. Not before the Joshua fight, the second fight. He's done it before. He's fought in that climate before. So so Hearn and Matchroom, badly miscalculated this situation, trying to get Usyk to go fight in a very hot climate. Hopefully, that would give Joshua more chance to win that fight. Apparently, it hindered Joshua's endurance and ability more so to Usyk. So, I thought I had to point that out there. But again, there was nothing more Joshua could have done to win that fight. Again, I'm just tired of hearing these other excuses why he lost. Yes, he could have done a couple of things here and there, but the fact is, it was still not going to be good enough to beat Usyk. It's just the way it is. People got to accept the fact that Joshua will never beat Usyk. If you put those guys in the ring 10 times, Usyk's going to win at least 9 out of the 10 times. Joshua may luck out in one of those fights, but other than that, yeah, he will never beat that guy. That's just the way it is. We got to accept that. Same thing with Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. Wilder's my fighter. He's my heavyweight. But at the end of the day, he will never beat Tyson Fury. That's just the way it is. You got to accept that fact. Now, let me go ahead and read the rest of the comments. Tony said that I had this fight. I scored the fight 10-2. I don't know what people I don't know, I don't know what people were watching. Even the AJ highlights show him missing 90% of those shit shots. I mean, they literally the highlights made they literally made the highlights to have they literally made those highlights for Joshua to look good to show him that he was missing. Yeah, you know what? That's a good point because I'm gonna go back to that 9th round. Yes, that was Joshua's dominating round, but if you look at the barrage of punches that he threw at Usyk, he was missing a lot of those shots. It was just no moment in that round that Usyk was about to go out. I just didn't see it. It looked like that from real time, but Usyk was throwing shots at him, and he was still connecting. And during that barrage, and Usyk was it was like he was in no danger of being stopped in that fight at all. No danger at all. Yes, he was get clipped with some shots, but those shots were missing. And also, I have to add too is that during that barrage, Joshua grabbed Usyk behind the back of the head and he put his left elbow, and he was punching on the back of his head 3 times. And I'm surprised the referee even warned him about that. I'm like, what the fuck? Credit to Usyk, he didn't complain, but other than that, yeah, I thought that was right there was like that was foul. But it is what it is. It is a fight. You got to do something about that as an opposing fighter. But I thought right there that was totally out of line. Now, I can understand why Joshua did that because he was frustrated. He knew he was losing the fight. He was getting outboxed again. He was tiring. So he did what he had to do. I mean, that's what he did. I mean, goddamn, I'm like, damn, that was. I thought the referee should have admonished Joshua for that, but he didn't. But it is what it is. Let me see. Mr. Quick says, before I get into his comments, shout out to Mr. Quick. In my opinion, Joshua did better in than the first fight. Usyk barely looked like he had been in the fight after the fight for the first time he was battered. Well, you know what? We'll agree to disagree on that one, Tony. Joshua did better technically, but it was the same fight either way because I still scored it 9-3, just like the first fight. And to be fair, Usyk did better too. That's the one thing people don't give him credit for. He did a lot better in the second fight than he did in the first fight. And yeah, by the way, those body shots that Joshua was throwing at Usyk blocked the majority of those shots. And people don't give him credit for that. But it's very deceptive because if you look at it from one angle, it looks like Joshua landed those shots, but Usyk is actually blocking them. So yeah. Haplo says that Usyk moved better and had a better performance in the first fight. Can't blame him. He was in a war for months, and then he fought AJ. I don't know. Maybe because Joshua didn't wasn't as aggressive like he was in the first fight. He wasn't aggressive in the first fight like he was in the second fight. So I can see your point there, Haplo. But at the end of the day, Usyk does adjust on the fly in the middle of the fight. He's very quick to adapt. So me personally, I would say his performance in the second fight was slightly better than he well, actually not a lot better. It was much better than it was in the first fight. Obviously, he dictated the pace in the first fight. So, yeah. So I guess we could agree to disagree there. But me personally, I thought Usyk did better in the second fight than he did in the first. But credit to both fighters. They both improved from their first fight. So it is what it is. Show knows that maybe Josh is gluten for punishment. Well, yeah. Yeah, one thing I have to add too is that the one thing I have to add is that Joshua took a lot of heavy blows in the 10th, 11th, and 12th round, especially the 10th round, because the 10th round, he took 39 punches, man. I'll say at least 30 of them were connected to the head. I'm like, what the fuck? And Usyk loaded up on those shots too. And I know Usyk's not a big puncher, but those shots are debilitating. They will hurt you. Credit to Joshua. He took them, but that right there can slow the fire down. And he took some, more big shots in the 11th round. 12th round, not so many heavy shots, but he still took a lot of punches. But other than that, yeah, I think right there, those shots in those 10th, 11th, and 12th round will slow Joshua down, at least from a physical standpoint, because man, those shots were heavy. So it is what it is on that one. Yeah, Mr. Quick says that's true. Some guys you'll never whip. Yeah, that's the way it is. I mean, look, all-time great fighters have fought fighters that had their number. So it's like with Tommy Hearns with Iran Barkley. Look, from a technical standpoint, Tommy Hearns is better than Iran Barkley, but from some odd way, Iran Barkley had Tommy Hearns' number. You just you look at the two, look at the styles between the two. It's like night and day. It's like, how could Tommy Hearns lose to a guy like that twice? How? But I know it's just that at the end of the day, it's just that Hearns just couldn't deal with the pressure and the power of Iran Barkley. He just couldn't deal with it. So it is what it is. Look, Mr. Quick says my dad told me that I'd never be able to beat my older brother who's much bigger. But like behold, one day I did. Yeah. I mean, one day you will beat somebody that always has your number. That takes a whole lot of fights for that to happen. But at the end of the day, this is prize fighting. You're not going to fight fighters like, the same fighter more than 3 times, luckily 4 times. So it is what it is. But usually on that third or fourth fight, you may outlast your opponent. Now, who knows? If Tyson Fury fights Deontay Wilder the fourth time, and it looks like that can't happen, sadly to say. If Deontay Wilder fights Tyson Fury the fourth time, who knows? I'm still picking Fury to win that fight. I don't want to see it. Truthfully, I don't. But if that happens, don't be surprised if Wilder wins that fight. But I'm still picking Fury either way, but it is what it is. Sometimes it takes that fourth or fifth fight to always, to get that one win over somebody who always had your number. Sometimes that happens. And Tony says that AJ threw nearly 200 more punches in the first fight. Well, he threw about 400, about close to 500 in the second fight against Usyk. Yeah, he threw everything at him, and still Usyk wasn't going anywhere. So, yeah, it's all good, Tony. I knew what you meant. I could read through the spelling errors. Haplo says that Usyk's face was more marked in the first fight, and that's not how you get the judges how to judge a fight, in my opinion. He seemed more hurt in the ninth round than the second fight to me. More body work from AJ, less head hunting. Yeah. I mean, again, better better job for Joshua. He did improve in his with his tactics in the second fight. He focused more on the body, but again, Usyk was prepared for that. He blocked most of those body shots. And to be fair, Usyk threw more body shots in the second fight to Joshua than he did in the first fight. And I think that's part of the reason that slowed Joshua down going into the ninth round. Because if you looked at in the first half of that fight, Usyk also was targeting Joshua's body to slow him down. Because once you start targeting that body, Joshua's arms start to come down when it comes to that high guard. Because he was starting to try to protect his body from taking blows than he is from the headshots, if you look at it. So both men were targeting the body, pretty much throughout that fight. Then obviously after the ninth round, Usyk dominated from 10, 11, and 12. So, the writing was on the wall from that standpoint. So, yeah. Yeah, Mr. Quick says bingo. Thank you. Yep, he agreed with my point about fighters always having your number. But if you fight him at least fourth or fifth time, you eventually might get the upper hand on that fighter. Peace to Smoke. What's up, Smoke? Mr. Quick says that I didn't watch it either, but it could happen. But I won't pay to watch Wilder Fury again, though. Yeah, I agree, man, because I think we've seen enough of those two fighting. But look again, given the fact of what's going on with Fury and his reluctancy to take the Usyk fight, I still don't think he wants that fight. I would not be surprised if Wilder Fury gets a fight for a fourth time going into next year. I would not be surprised if that happens. And God forbid it doesn't. God forbid it does, I should say, because I don't want to see it. Yeah, I see you guys agree with your points there, but yeah, I just thought I'd throw out those comments by Robert Garcia because obviously it's very telling that he's throwing Anthony Joshua under the bus, and also is an indication that he will not be back at Joshua's camp for his next fight. I'll be surprised if he comes back for his camp, but at the end of the day, if he does come back to train Anthony Joshua for his next fight, I would say that's tough love. So it's something that Joshua needs to hear. And we all know that Anthony Joshua doesn't like to be told negative things, and he likes to be surrounding himself with yes men. And yes, we criticize Deontay Wilder for having yes men in his camp. Same thing goes for Anthony Joshua. And speaking of Deontay Wilder, this is something we got to talk about here. And to me, I got to call this bullshit out for what it is. And I like Deontay Wilder. But this dude had the audacity to come out and say that Anthony Joshua is manufactured and he's avoided tough fights. Now, one part of that comment, you can probably argue that Anthony Joshua is a bit manufactured. We all know that. But who isn't manufactured as a fighter? Who isn't? But for him to say that Anthony Joshua avoided tough fights, I don't know what fucking cocaine that he's been sipping up his nose or something, because, again, I like Deontay Wilder. It's called tough love, but we got to call it out for what it is. For him to come out and say that is fucking blasphemy, because Anthony Joshua, if you look at his string of fights that he's had over the last 6 years, aside from the Eric Molina and the Dominic Brazil fights, after the Vladimir Klitschko fight, he's fought Joseph Parker, he's fought Carlos Takam, he's fought Alexander Povetkin, he's fought Andrew Ruiz twice, he's fought Kubrat Pulev. Yeah, it wasn't a tough fight. I get that. It was a mandatory, but it is what it is. He's fought Alexander Usyk twice. So how can you say that Anthony Joshua's avoided tough fights? And yet here you are. And be fair to Deontay, he's fought Luis Ortiz twice, Dom Brazil. He's fought Dyson Fury 3 times. I get that. But before those fights, look what you had. You had Bermain Severn. Yeah, some people didn't think you were going to win that fight. Give you credit for that. You had Eric Molina. You had, who else? Johan Duhaupas. You had, what else? Chris Ariel, God forbid, I didn't like that fight at all. Then you had Bermain Stavern again. No way in hell he should have been a mandatory challenger for your title again. Then you had Tyson Fury the first time. Luis Ortiz. Give you credit for that. Tough fight. Tyson Fury, tough fight. Luis Ortiz, Dom Brazil. Yes, valuable contender at the time. But at the end of the day, you cannot say that Anthony Joshua avoided tough fights because you avoided the undisputed fight with Vladimir Klitschko. Yeah, we remember that. Yeah, to be fair, that Klitschko did make a contradictory comment about taking that fight, but it is what it is. But your manager said that you weren't ready for that fight. Then here you are, play the games with Anthony Joshua for that undisputed fight. And to be fair, Joshua was playing games as well. So I blame both fighters for why that fight didn't happen. Now, Deontay, you turned down more offers to fight Anthony Joshua more so that Anthony Joshua turned down fights to fight you. Now, you went on Twitter and you admitted that you turned down big money to fight Anthony Joshua. You did that. And you got called out for that comment, which was why I don't know why you made that comment, but it is what it is. So I think it's blasphemy for him to say that shit. All right. So again, to me, I think he needs to get off the fact to stop talking about Anthony Joshua, focus on Robert Helenius, because you could lose that fight, by the way. You could lose that fight. I expect you to win it, but you could still lose that fight. So I suggest you get off Anthony Joshua, stop tearing him down. But to be fair, it is what it is. I think he needs to stop talking about Anthony Joshua for the moment. All right. I had to call that out. I didn't like that comment that he made about Joshua avoiding tough fights. That's bullshit. We all know it's bullshit. I think he knows it's bullshit. I think he's just trying to stir up controversy between him and Joshua again. That's just my opinion. And Tyson Fury is another fucking character too. I already talked about him many times, so we don't need to go there. So Quick says that was shitty how he blasted Joshua. I don't like to see black men against black men like this. Yeah, I don't either, man. I really don't like to see it. But at the end of the day, I know it's boxing. You do have to build controversy against your rivals to get people to be interested in the fight. That's probably what Deontay Wilder is doing. I don't know. But I think it was shitty for him to do that shit, in my opinion. And for him to say that he's avoided tough fights, that is like the pot, that's like the pot kettle black, as you want to call it. Because Deontay has avoided several tough fights. And he's been protected as well. So we all know that. And I'm a Deontay Wilder fan. And to be fair, he has taken tough fights later in his career. So that kind of goes out the window. But at the same time, he shouldn't be saying that, because we all go back to the past. We all could go back to say that, yeah, as your reign as champion, you avoided several tough fights. You have, Deontay. You have. So let's be real. Now, the Povetkin fight, that wasn't his fault. I'm not going to fault him for that, because he was willing to take that fight. He signed up for it. He was going to Russia for that fight. That was Povetkin's team that fucked that up with the drug test situation, so I'm not blaming Deontay for that. Luis Ortiz the first time around, I'm not blaming him for that either, but he did end up fighting Ortiz later on. But then some people was like, well, if you're going to fight Ortiz later on, why did you fight Povetkin later on? Well, the problem with that is that Povetkin was on suspension for 6 months with the WBA. What are you talking about? Yeah, furthermore, they took him away from the rankings. And so that was out of Deontay Wilder's control. In fact, Povetkin had a chance to fight Wilder again. All he had to do is stay clean for the Stavern fight, and he got popped dirty again. So that's not Deontay Wilder's fault. Same thing with Luis Ortiz. Ortiz had to fight his way back in contention to fight Wilder again, which he did. So I don't want to hear that shit about, oh, he could have fought Povetkin. Some people just have a double standard when it comes to that bullshit. All right. But at the same time, he shouldn't be going around talking about Joshua's, avoided top fights and he's protected. That's fucking bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. All right. It is what it is. He would have had a point if Eddie Hearn had vacated that WBO belt and avoided Alexander Usyk. He may would have had a point there, but Joshua took the fight. It also a fight that Eddie Hearn didn't want him to take. He took it anyway. He lost. He got dominated. He took the rematch, lost again in the same fashion. So at least Joshua tried. He tried to fight the best. And yes, he has 3 losses on the record. It is what it is when you go on a run like Joshua did. It's inevitable that you're going to take losses. So I don't, it is what it is. I see Smoke and Tony having a little bit of a disagreement there. I'll get into that in a second. Let me see. Smoke says that Stavern should have been Mando given Povetkin and Ortiz failed. No, no, Stavern did not deserve to be mandatory. I don't care. Look, Smoke, we agree to disagree there. Stavern had one fight, and that was against Derek Rossi. Arguably, he lost that fight, but he was gifted a decision. He was dropped in that fight against Rossi. It is what it is. Yes, it's not his fault that Povetkin and Ortiz failed their drug tests, but at the end of the day, I don't think he should have been the mandatory challenger. I think somebody else should have been more deserving for that shot. I think who was in that rankings at the time? I think it was I think Caballel was ranked at the time. I think who else was there? I have to go back and check, but there was other fighters who were more deserving to get that spot than Stavern. More deserving. That's just my opinion. If he had fought Joshua 3 years ago, that would have been a great fight. Yeah, you know what? I think Deontay in his mind regret not taking that fight, and I think Joshua's team regret for not taking it. Regret for not taking that fight either. Because if we had that fight, we probably would never had Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury with those belts. Let's be truthful here. Usyk and Fury had to come in and clean this up between Joshua and Wilder. They cleaned it up. And now those two on the verge of fighting for undisputed. I know a lot of people are not happy about it. And I know there's a lot of finger pointing going on. Yeah, rightfully so. But at the end of the day, it was both Wilder, it was both Joshua why we never got that fight 3 years ago or 4 years ago. It was both their fault. Yes, Deontay Wilder turned down more offers, but at the end of the day, Anthony Joshua had a chance to fight Deontay Wilder when he was offered the money to fight him, but he didn't take it either, which he openly admitted that he turned down the fight. He did, and many of Joshua fanboys want to ignore that fact that he did go on to a live interview with the Breakfast Club and admitted that he turned down the fight. The same thing with Deontay Wilder, and he said himself that look, it takes two people to make a fight. There were some turns that he didn't like, and there were certain turns that I didn't like. So I turned down the fight against him, and he turned down the fight against me. So it is what it is. All right. Tony and Smoker going at it. He says, look, for fuck's sakes, it's not about damage being counted for points. It's about clean, effective punches landed. Usyk's skin did not turn into steel in between fights. Had he been hit as clean effectively, the damage would have been effective. Yeah, I agree with Tony on that. I agree with that. But sometimes judges are very deceptive when it comes to power punches and the effective of those punches. So it is what it is. Joshua was less effective in the rematch. He had one moment in one round. In the first fight, he staggered Usyk more than once. It's clear as day. AJ landed their cleaner, more effective shots and harder shots. Again, we disagree. I agree to disagree there because in the second fight, he hit Usyk with some big rights. And Usyk was affected by those shots, especially with the body shots, but he wasn't going anywhere. And the fact that Usyk hurt Joshua more so in the second fight, in my opinion, than the first. I know Joshua showed a poker face, but he was staggering in that 10th and 11th round. He was gone. 12th round too, he was gone. So both fighters, in my opinion, took a lot of took significant damage, but Joshua, in my opinion, took way more damage to Usyk. Well, not my opinion. It is the truth. He took way more damage. In fact, if you look at the two fights and the punch stats, Usyk landed over 300 punches on Joshua in those two fights. 300 punches. I'll say about 70% of those punches were headshots. And that right there will slow a fighter down. Not mentally, but physically as well. So, yeah, let's see here. Smoke says that damage, disruption, dominance is the least throughout which the four scoring criteria are judged. Shout out to Mr. Boston today. Yep, let me thumbs up this video. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that, Mr. Quick. I really appreciate that. All right, there. You guys need to debate this, man. Smoke. Hey, Tony, Smoke. Y'all want to debate this right now? I'm gonna post a link to the chat. You guys come in and debate this. I'll go ahead and moderate. That's if you guys are up to it. Let me see here. BG London, what's up, man? What's up? But before I let you guys come in and debate this, let me go through this list of topics real quickly. EFC. All right, cool. Y'all want to debate this? Yeah, I'll get you guys on real quickly. Yeah, big up to BG London. Well, yeah, you know what? Dillian White deserved a mandatory shot. Why not? Wilder could have fought him back then. More so than he was more deserving than Stavern. Let's see here. Let's see. Yeah, BG London said Joshua trained harder to do the same goddamn thing. Well, not necessarily. I mean, he was more focused on the body. He had a high, he had a tighter guard with his defense, so that was the improvements I see there. But other than that, it's just not good enough to beat Usyk. Yeah, so that's just my opinion. Yeah, I'm gonna drop the link, Smoke. Give me one moment here. Let me just go through my list of topics. I think I'm about done with one more topic. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna leave those on right now. I'm gonna get you guys in here. You guys debate this. All right, I'm gonna moderate. Yeah, Mr. Quick says that listen, here's where people may disagree. I actually think if Joshua ever beats Usyk, then he would never lose another fight against Usyk. Well, that's a good point, but the only chance he'll beat Usyk if he ever, they ever fight the third time, is that we've seen some regression from Usyk, and that's going to happen. He is going to regress because he is getting older. It's going to be a matter of time when he loses those reflexes and that speed, because that will diminish over time when you get older. Because especially if you're inflicting damage too, because that takes a toll on your body, whatnot. So yeah, if they fight a third time and if there's signs of regression, that's when Joshua has a better chance of beating Usyk at that time if they ever fight the third time. There's no moderating with Smoke. He talks over people who talks. You know what, Tony? Trust me. I'll tame Smoke. I'll get him under. Trust me. I'll get him under wraps. You know me. Smoke knows me as well. When I moderate, I know I don't tolerate over talking. He knows that, and so you'll be fine here. Trust me, man. I'll tell him if there's no over talking. Whenever somebody makes a point, you gotta let the person finish his point. No interrupting, because I will let you know that you cannot interrupt. All right. So we can have this debate. We could have a formal, we could just have a straight out conversation where you guys just conversate, but do not overtalk each other. I'll make sure that trust me, we can do that. Yeah, I agree, BG London. They both need each other's 50-50. But all right, guys, come on over here right now. We can settle this. I will moderate this because I'm a very good moderator, and I will not tolerate any disrespect and no over talking. So the link is there. Speaking of Wilder again, we still sticking on him, but real quickly though, is Eddie Hearn desperate to sign Deontay Wilder? And the reason why I bring this up is because Eddie Hearn has revealed that there's been two offers made to Deontay Wilder. One for the Anthony Joshua fight. That was before the Usyk fight. That was a week, 1 week before the Usyk fight. He sent the offer for Wilder to fight Joshua, and then he sends another offer for Wilder to fight Dillian White in the Middle East for a lot of money. I'm like, what? And sadly, Wilder hasn't responded to those offers yet, but I'll get to that momentarily. But let's get these guys in here. What's up, Tony, and what's up, Smoke? What's happening, guys?
What's going on, Dan?
I'm good, brother.
This
I'm
is gonna
good.
be real short because I got to go too. By the way,
Wait, Smoke. Smoke. Hold up. Okay, you guys gonna make this short, but yeah, I understand you guys are debating a little bit, but again, there's no be over talking. You guys get your points out, but again, you gotta let the guy finish his point. If there's gonna be a little interjecting here and there, maybe I can tolerate that, but no over aggressive interrupting. Okay. All right. All
Yeah,
right.
nah,
Cool.
that's good. I'm just saying what's up back. She
Oh,
said
okay.
what's
Cool.
up.
All right. Cool, man. Cool. All right, but you understand, Smoke. You cannot interrupt him when he's making his point. All right. I know you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get it. This is obviously goes both ways, right? My man is like he's funny with this shit, but let's go.
Okay,
Let's
fair
get
enough. I'm gonna tell Tony the same thing. No interrupting. All right. So, who wants to lead off with their first point?
I'll go ahead because it's very easy.
Okay, go ahead, Tony. Go ahead.
The rudimentary of it's not about damage. Okay, that's I never said damage is how you win a fight. It's clean, effective punches, effective aggression. Meaning, if you're coming forward, getting your head boxed off, you're not winning the round just because you're being aggressive. It's got to be effective aggression, ring generalship, controlling the action, and your defense. Last of all, that's how you judge a fight. Now, Smoke would like to say that I don't know how to judge fights, even though I've done God knows how many live commentaries, live blow by blow scoring, over 140 cards I've done and only been wrong on 4. Meanwhile, Smoke, on the other hand, he's the type of person to say, I know how to judge a fight, but he'll tell you how he had it after the judges reveal their score, after the fight is over, not live, not with it, never done it. And that's the thing that's so funny to me. If you're going to say that you're accurate, if you're going to say that you're good with it, then do it live and do it with the fights. And let's see you reveal your score before the judges do to see how good you're actually at it, because I'm damn near flawless.
All right, Smoke, you want to respond to that?
Sure. I guess I'll go last first about his flawless. I mean, I guess everybody's a legend in their own mind and the hero in their own movie, but whatever. There's no way to prove anything that you just said. But I, on the other hand, have judged fights live on stream. But beyond that, also you're talking to the champion of a prediction league where you have to predict literally the outcome of the judges' scorecards. But even beyond that part, like the four scoring criteria, the first thing that's actually the point, like not whether or not I think you can score fights, even though you say damage is like somehow it's somehow related to like the lightness of your skin because you can see the bruises better, so you'll get judged for damage differently, when that's not how damage is defined. The lens through which you look at the four scoring criteria: ring generalship, defense, effective aggression, clean, effective punching. The lens through which you're looking at that is through the lens of dominance, disruption, and damage. And those three categories also are clearly defined. And none of it has to do with how black your eye is or if you're bleeding or whatever the hell it is. That's not how damage is scored at all. That's how damage is considered in scoring, is closer to the point. Go ahead.
All right, Tony, you want to respond?
All right, let's rebuttal the damage. Let's focus on damage, because here's what we know. AJ damn near landed the same amount of punches in both fights. What we know is a grazing shot causes less damage, whether the fighter is rolling with it or it just completely skims them because they're evading it. However, if you get hit cleanly, more damage comes from the shot because the punch is hitting you in the face harder. Now, if we look at damage and we look at the amount of punches landed in between both fights, damn near identical. The only difference here is at the end of the second fight, the conclusion, Usyk was barely damaged. He had a little bit of a whelp underneath, I believe it was his right eye, and that was it. In the first fight, those body shots that y'all say that he did more of in the second fight, he was bruised from the waist all the way to the top of his forehead. It looked like somebody had beat Usyk with a baseball bat, which tells you, because the amount of landed shots were damn near identical, Usyk's skin did not get a darker pigment. He was not coming in there black from being white in the first one, so that didn't change. Nothing changed other than how hard the shots landed, how clean and effective they were, and the damage that was revealed after the fight. That's all I said. I didn't say anything about how that's how I scored it. I said you could tell by just looking at it that the shots were harder and did more damage in the first one.
Right. So, and this is just for everyone, because this is like a common mistake. This is not like something that's unique to Tony. That you hear a word and you use like the commonly understood definition of the word when they're actually talking about some technical jargon, right? So in this case, you're looking at how bruised the guy is to see how much damage was done. Meanwhile, the way that they're looking at damage when it comes to judging, like I said, is very defined. It's A, knocking down your opponent. B, staggering your opponent. C, violently causing your opponent's head to move from a blow. D, significant body blows that obviously slow down your opponent. Those are the four different subcategories. Notice how none of it had to do with bruising, right? Because that's not how you determine how damage is being done. This is not the lens through which they're judging. This is the lens through which you're judging. Now, and you're like, you might be right every now and again, but that's like saying God causes rain. Just because you pray to God and rain comes, it may be often that happens. That's not actually evidence that because you prayed, rain came.
Yeah, this is good. Tony, you want to respond?
Okay, so yeah, this is very easy. Damage. When you have two fighters who have fought each other and they're going into the rematch, right? You know how one fighter's body reacts to clean shots because you can see the damage from the shots happen in front of your eyes. The case in point to this is if we had two vehicles and one vehicle was grazed by a crash And then the same two vehicles were taken back into the same crash, and they go head on. You can see the difference in the damage. You can see the cleanness of the hit because you see the difference. Nothing's changed in between the two vehicles other than one was a fender bender and one was a head-on collision. So with that being said, you could tell that in the first fight, AJ was landing the harder shots by the damage that was inflicted. Now, if you want to go on past that and say, oh, don't just look at the bruising, because that was only one metric that I said. You could just look at them and tell the difference in between the first and second fight. AJ had one moment in the rematch, the 9th round. That was it. In the first fight, he staggered Usyk more than once. In fact, he staggered him 3 times from 3 different shots to the body. He popped Usyk's head back and hurt him more than once, several times. In the rematch, he didn't do that, but in one round. It is evident as day by your own metrics that AJ did more damage in the first fight because Usyk was hurt several times versus one time in one round at one moment.
I don't know what you think that you're arguing now. It seems like you've shifted to which fight AJ did more damage in, which is, I don't know, tangential, and who cares? I didn't even think about which one it is. I don't give a fuck about that. We're literally just talking about how damage is being scored in a fight. And apparently you felt some kind of way about what you feel like I think about your scoring methods. I'm just telling you, just straight the fuck up. I'm not making this up as I go along and using my deductive reasoning and like my understanding of the English language, right? That's not what's happening. I mean, it is to a certain extent, but I'm using a reference, right? And the reference I'm using is for the actual judges, right? What their responsibilities are and what they're obligated and what lens they're obligated to look through. Right. And the stuff that you're referencing, like some of your metrics, have nothing to do with what the judges are looking at. And that's all I'm pointing out.
You do realize the more clean, effective shots you land will inflict more damage on the target. Therefore, if that target looks like it's been beat by baseball bats by the end of the fight, in the first one, and then you fight the same target again in a second one, and it barely has any marking, it is evident that you landed more clean and effective shots throughout that fight.
Okay, so let me. All right, so you got one guy who looks like he has been in the dryer with some rocks, right? And you got another guy who has been doing the stanky leg the entire fight, every single round of every fight, but looks pretty as fucking Muhammad Ali did at 22 years old. What do you think who do you think has been done the most damage in your mind with what you just laid out?
Now what you're trying to do is straw man by shifting the argument to be about
No.
Let finish. Go ahead, Tony. Go ahead, man.
You see that and get used to that because we're about to wrap this up very soon. See, what he tried to do was shift the conversation to be about two fighters that have nothing to do with the fight at hand. See, when you do that, now you're gauging different things. Now you're looking at the different human biology makeup of another person, how they react to punches, how well they recover. Does their body even get bruised? It's completely different than what's at stake. We know, aka what Usyk's face does to a clean punch landed by AJ on his face due to the first fight. We have a metric. We know, we see the tangible evidence from the first fight, what these shots do to Usyk's body. His body did not change. If anything, it only gets worse with age in between fights. So if anything, he should have bruised up worse due to him being so old at 36 years old, still fighting. But what we saw was his body did not get as bruised, did not get as damaged in the second fight. Why? Because I come back full circle to what I said before. AJ did not land as many clean and effective shots, which is only one metric of how to score a fight. Again, I will restate, in my opinion, and I just said damage. You can look at how they look. I didn't say that's how I scored the fight off of damage alone. All I said was you could tell by how beat up Usyk looked after the first fight that AJ did a better job in the first one than he did in the second one. Now, that was just one metric. Nothing past that. So I don't know what you're talking about here. Where are you trying to wiggle your way out of?
So you want to respond?
Right. I'm trying to wiggle my way out of it, even though I asked you a hypothetical, not even about two fighters, just about fighters, right? In general, I didn't name any two fighters. I just said in fighters. And then you talked about straw manning and completely ignored the hypothetical about actually how you score a fight. Do you score by what you're talking about? Look, you've been in a fight with some bats, right? A fight with bats. That was your language. If you want me to use your language, versus a guy who's being done the stanky leg, which is the actual metric when you're looking at damage, not how they looked, regardless of a guy's history of bruising. So now a judge is supposed to know how a fighter is bruises in his previous fight in your mind in order to score whether or not damage is fucking being done. Because damage is one of the lenses through which judges judge the 4 scoring criteria. So clean, effective punches, even though a guy, for example, can look like he's been in a fight with baseball bats. Meanwhile, none of the fucking punches landed as clean as his opposition's work, who looks fine in the fight. That could be a difference between punching power, not accuracy, right? So there's a whole bunch of things. Like I said, damage is clearly defined. And like I've said, this is from the WBC University for judges. This is not me going, hey, you know what? I saw a guy and he looked pretty bad, and I know he doesn't have a history of bruising. So in this fight versus the other fight, he must have been doing better in this fight versus the other fight. Like, I'm not going to all of that fucking like mental gymnastics. It's very fucking simple, and it isn't based on my own personal criteria or methodology or deductive reasoning. It's literally laid out for you. What it is: damage, disruption, dominance. In the idea of damage, it is absolutely has nothing to do with the amount of bruising or what the guy looks like in any way, shape, or form. I know you would like to feel like that lighter skinned people are at a disadvantage to darker skinned people when it comes to scoring judges because they see the damage on it, but that's actually not what they're looking at.
Whoo! Almost fell asleep with that long tangent. Look, I'm going to say this first and foremost. I was not the one that brought up other fighters' names. You segued into Muhammad Ali trying to make your point. You did that, not me. So don't try to get out of that because you brought that up, which is what brought me into the tangent about now you're talking about different fighters, the way they bruise, etc. No, again, you come back full circle to it's not about knowing somebody's history. We literally just saw them in their last fight against each other. We know what they do to each other. There is no difference in power because it's the same AJ fighting the same target, which is Usyk. It's the same guy in both fights. He didn't even have a fight in between. He literally went from one loss to another loss. So his damage, his power, everything he inflicts is all still the same. If it changed, very minimum at best. Now, coming back, you said, if you want me to answer the question, if one fighter's doing the stanky leg the whole fight, but the other guy looks more bruised, then of course the guy who did the stanky leg the whole fight lost the fight, whether he's bruised or not, because he's been wobbled the whole fight. But we'll segue off of that and we'll use that. Here's the problem. AJ did the stanky leg in the second fight. He did. He did it multiple times in the second fight. Usyk, however, only did the stanky leg one time in the rematch. But here's the big problem. In the first fight, when AJ fought Usyk, he had him doing the stanky leg several times. He hit him several times and stopped him dead in his tracks. He didn't do that at all in the rematch. He only did it in one round, the 9th round. That was it. Outside of that, he had no success.
All right. So apparently you don't know what an example was. I was talking about a guy who's pretty as Muhammad Ali. I didn't say Muhammad Ali. I was only talking about a guy with no bruises at the end of his punches because Muhammad Ali used to say how pretty he was at the end of fights. I literally could have used anybody. The point was the guy had no damage. I wasn't using Muhammad Ali. I wasn't moving on the fucking goalpost. That was using him as an example. That's it. Not the fucking point at all. Sorry I had to explain that shit to you, but it is what it is. And for the upteenth time, this is not about who did more damage, for me at least, in between AJ and Usyk. That's your trip. The only thing I'm tripping off of is you're using damage, the way that you're using damage in the way that you're scoring fights. That's it. Like, if you understand damage as the concept that the judges are referring to when they're looking at the 4 scoring criteria, then we don't have any argument. I don't give a damn about AJ and Usyk. I don't know why you keep bringing it up.
The whole argument, the whole conversation was about AJ and Usyk. I made the statement that all you had to do was take one look at Usyk after the end of the first fight and one look at him at the end of the second fight, and that'll tell you everything you need to know about which fight AJ did better in. That'll tell you everything you need to know. That's all I said. I didn't say that I was judging each individual fight about, oh, Usyk just got a black eye. Oh, that's an automatic win round. Oh, he just got a bruised rib. Oh, that's another win round. I never made that statement. You made that statement for me. All I said was you can look at the end result and tell which fight AJ did better in. That's all I said.
Correct. And the only thing I'm talking about is the way that you're using damage to talk about whether or not a guy is doing better in a fight, regardless if it's Usyk or an AJ or any other person. I'm speaking generally about how you're scoring fights and how you're looking at damage. That is absolutely not the way judges are looking at it.
Oh my God. It's like I might as well stare at this wall to my left, and I've been on here longer than I want to, and talk to this wall. Like, I don't understand where your mind goes. It's like you shut down, you don't listen, and you just talk and say whatever you want to say and keep going on with your rhetoric. Here's the fact of the matter. All I said once again was you can look at the end result and tell which one AJ did better in. Then when you look at the CompuBox and you realize that AJ landed damn near the same amount of punches. In fact, he landed a little bit more in the second one, but inflicted a lot less damage, which tells you that the punches were not as clean, they were not as effective. Because if they were as clean, if they were as effective, and he landed even more so in the second one, which was barely more, then Usyk would have looked as bruised, because the same hard shots would have been landing. But the difference here was, like all the replays showed you in the highlights, AJ, some of them punches they were counting were missing, were being blocked. They were barely grazing. They were barely touching Usyk in his own fucking highlights that was supposed to make him look good. He looked bad because he was missing everything. In the first fight, he was hitting him cleanly, hitting him hard. That's why he got hurt multiple times in the first fight. And that's why in the second fight, he only got hurt once, because none of the shots were clean or effective. Again, if you want to talk about judging, I already said the 4 criteria before I started. It's clean, effective punches, effective aggression, ring generalship, and defense. That's how you score it, not off the damage. All I'm saying is you look at the result of the fight and you can tell by the damage inflicted which one AJ had more success on. You didn't have to watch both the fights to know. That's all I said.
Right. You keep saying he did better in the first fight because you can tell by the damage, but then you say damage is not the way you can tell who did better in the fight. You can't have it both ways. Either you can understand who did better by looking at the guy, or you can tell who did better by watching the fucking fight and judging it by the sports criteria using damage the way that judges do it. That is how you determine who fucking did better in the fight, not looking at him at the end and say, well, you know what? This guy is bruised up, but that other guy isn't. That's how you can tell. What I'm telling you is every time you do that, what you're doing is setting yourself up for a dumbass fucking card. It's a really weird mental shortcut, a really lazy mental shortcut. Your heretics are fucking off.
Dan, I'm gonna phone a friend and ask you to answer a question for me, right?
All right, go ahead. Sure.
Dan, if I hit you 120 times in the face today, and you look like you've been in a car wreck, okay? And then we wait a year from now, and I hit you 120 times in the face again, but you don't even look like you were touched. Could you quite say in your own mind which punches hit you cleaner and harder?
Well, I mean, I could tell a difference from the shots from the previous fight, going to the second one, because I guess what I'm saying is that if you hit me 120 times the first fight and the shots were more telling, then if they're less telling in the second time around than the first one, then yeah, I won't be affected by that. That won't give me the impression that you're not beating me. You can hit me with the same shots, but if they're not taking no toll on, they're not taking any effect, then it's going to take more. You're going to have to hit me with a baseball bat or something to get me out of there. So I guess to your point is, I guess what you're saying is that, am I affected by the shots from the second time around versus the first time around? The answer would be no.
Well, I think my point was, if I hit you and you look like you've been in a car wreck today, and then I hit you again a year from now, obviously when I hit you the second time a year from now and you have no damage on you, I wasn't hitting you as cleanly or as effectively, because the same amount of damage is no longer visible.
It takes effect. Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, that's what I was
getting
at.
Yeah. So that's all I was saying by saying that you can look at how beat up Usyk looked after the first fight, and then look at him at the second fight and tell where AJ had more success, where AJ landed harder shots, where they were more effective. You can just look at them and tell, because we're still talking about the same two fighters. We're not talking about AJ fighting Usyk and doing this amount of damage than AJ fighting Ruiz and Ruiz looking this way, because that's different. You have two different bodies. They're going to absorb power differently. They're going to look completely different. They could have the same two shots land onto them, and one guy's going to bruise up worse than the other guy. That's two different people. But when it's the same person, we can tell by the damage inflicted on you if it's the same the first time around or the second time around. All I was saying is you could just look at his face and tell that he got hit harder, cleaner in the first one than he did the second one. Again, when I judged the first one, I scored more rounds for AJ. When I judged the second one, I only gave AJ 2 rounds, 2 out of 12. He did worse, in my opinion. And that's not going off the damage. That's going off of blows landed, blow by blow landed. Not saying damage at the end of the fight. I can't predict the future and see the end result of what the fight is going to look like when I'm going round by round saying, okay, 10-9 for AJ. Okay, 10-9 for Usyk, 10-9 for Usyk. I'm not seeing damage by the end result.
Really, you're the only one who keeps talking about his looking at his face as a metric of damage. Like, that is literally only you doing that shit when it comes to your own scoring. The only other part of this whole thing, it's not who did the most damage in between each fight. It's who's doing the most damage against each other in each fight. So the idea that one guy was more bruised in a fight and then he fought him again and was more bruised he was bruised in one fight and then got more bruised in the rematch, that still doesn't tell you who was landing the cleaner punches in either fight. It only tells you who's more bruised and who's more bruised between the two guys, and did you get bruised more in the first fight than the second fight? It doesn't tell you how much damage was being done according to the judges. It doesn't tell you how effective you've been in that fight according to the judges. It doesn't tell you fuck all. So I don't know why you keep referring to it when you talk about your scoring.
No, again, nobody said damage equals scoring. I never once made that statement in anywhere that I typed, nor have I made that statement with you. The only thing I said was you can look after the fights were over and tell which one AJ had more success in. I did not say that I scored. Like, that would be like me saying that I waited till the 12th round to do my score. And I never said that. Again, you could tell by the damage inflicted. If you did not watch the fight, you can look at AJ and be like, oh yeah, he got his ass whooped the first fight. Then you see AJ in the second one, you'd be like, oh, he didn't get his ass whooped as bad Usyk got his ass whooped in the first fight. And then you see the second fight, you're like, damn, he barely touched Usyk because he don't have no marks. You can see the difference. There is a difference here. That's why my scorecards reflected on the first one. Not saying I went off the damage, because I did not. AJ did better on my scorecard in the first one than he did the second one. And again, had you not seen the fights, your eyes will tell you where he was more successful. Usyk barely looked like he was hit. Like, I don't understand. What you're not understanding about me making the statement was, at the end of the first fight, Usyk looked battered. At the end of the second fight, he looked like he barely been hit. I don't understand how your brain can't comprehend that. Obviously, AJ must have had more success in the first one. I don't get it. I don't see what it is.
Okay, I keep telling you, you keep talking about how your scorecard is reflected by his damage, and then talk about how it's not. Then you talk about success is only the only metric you give for success is the amount of damage, is the bruising, right? So if that's the only way you're going to define success, not whether or not it has anything to do with the scoring of the fight, then I don't know what it is we're talking about. You can redefine terms and put it all your way. All I'm talking about is how judges look at fights. Whatever mental gymnastics you're doing to square this circle in your mind, that you can talk about his success, talk about scoring a fight, and then talk about bruising like they're all of a piece, even though they're not, then cool. Do that till the cows come home. The only thing I'm talking about is your methodology, your stated methodology. When it comes to looking at a guy who's bruised and equating that to success in a fight. And that as a corollary, the judging. When it comes to judging, yes, damage is something that they look through that's a lens through which they look when they're judging the 4 criteria. But damage is very clearly defined, and it has nothing to do with bruising. Success is defined differently than what you're defining success and how the judges define success.
Again, okay. I have to come back full circle. I have to come back full circle to this dude again, because it's like, it's like he's a plant and he's covered in concrete and the water just can't get through. It's not seeping through to his brain so he can take it in. So he's just dying over here. That's what he is. He's a dying plant. Again, I will restate again what I said. I never once said that I score a fight off of the damage, off the end result of how the fighters look. I never said that. The statement that I made was you could see the end result and tell by how beat up Usyk was the first time versus the second time, how him barely not having a mark on him other than what was underneath his right eye. That's all I said. I did not say that's how I scored the fight while the fight was going. Now, to the chat who's saying, show the scorecards. That's very easy. I do lives. So all you got to do is go down my playlist, click on my live where I did the fight, and you'll see me going round by round, scoring the fights, round by round, live with it. Had them wrote out before the judges even announced them. In the first one, you'll see that live. Just like in the second one, you'll see me doing it live, where I only gave AJ 2 rounds live. You'll see that. Unlike Get the Smoke, who says, oh, this was my scorecard after the scorecards were only announced. That's the difference here. He's over here trying to say that I don't know how to score fights. But again, I will say this one more time for it to seep in for everybody. I do these live. Over 140 cards now live, where you can watch me round by round. And I give my total added up score before the judges do. And they're always correct. 140 plus and only 4 wrong. I would say that accuracy is dead on. Meanwhile, Smoke tries to talk like he's a scholar, but has no receipts, no evidence to prove that he even knows what he claims to know, other than saying the same thing that I started this off with and repeating it like a parrot.
Smoke, you want to respond?
Like I said, your personal attacks are a poor substitute for logic and knowledge, bro. Like you can break your arm patting yourself on the back and give yourself the self-congratulatory award all the fuck you want. Like I said, if you want further receipts, go check out Champs Raw's Prediction League, where I was the champion, where you have to actually not only get who won, but how they won, right? Also, you have to get the results correct. And it was against guys who actually fucking fight, not guys who feel like they're doing well because they got a couple of predictions right in their minds, and now whatever through absolutely no proof other than saying it's live. I guess you only got 4 wrong. Cool. Maybe you should try doing more predictions. I think your rate would probably go up, because I'm not doing like 1 fight a week. It's more try like 20 fights a week. Let's see what your average looks like after that. If you just want to do like a personal attack. But none of this has anything to do with AJ or Usyk. Like I said, this is literally about judging every single fight. Your methodology about judging fights. Whether you got Usyk right or wrong is irrelevant. Like I said, you can pray for rain and it actually might rain. You think your prayer had something to do with rain? Probably didn't.
No, the problem is you're the one praying for rain, thinking that because it rained, you got rain. Your own evidence for yourself is not even evidence at all. Again, we come to a straw man. You said that I was number 1 in a prediction league. That's your claim. That's what you stated you were. Being number 1, saying that, oh, I believe Usyk will beat AJ, is not scoring a fight. That is the outcome, the end result, who you believe will win, whether it's by knockout, etc., whatever. That's you in your mind looking at the 2 fighters saying, oh, I believe this guy will knock out that guy. That has nothing to do with scoring the fight. Scoring the fight is saying this guy won this round because of these reasons. Then going through all 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, however many it is. That's scoring a fight, not predicting the outcome of a fight. They're completely different. You could predict the correct winner, but that doesn't mean that you can score the round right for the fighter and have it accurate to the judges that are scoring it live. That's the difference here. So what you're doing is you're patting yourself on the back with your leg because you have no fucking arms in this argument. You're disabled in this argument. You have no backing. You have no receipts. You have no credentials. And you're using a prediction which has nothing to do with judging to say that I can judge. It doesn't. I'm sorry, Smoke. You have nothing. I'm about to have to go.
So you do realize the same. No, hold up a second. You do realize the same credentials you say you have. I also do this online, also on stream live, like all the damn time. Like literally what your claim to fame is. I also have that, but also more things than that. But beyond that whole thing, the judges' scorecard. There's 3 different judges. they can all differ. There is no such thing as right fucking scorecards, right? Like, really, if you want to talk about if you're in line with the judge's scorecard, none of your scorecards are in line with the judge's scorecard, even if you get the guy right. So if that's where you want to go with it, but whatever, that's a different subject for another day. But this ain't even about you and me specifically, about like me trying to say I'm a better judge than you. I'm literally just going off of I'm just reading from a handbook from the judges. Like, I'm saying about the methodology. I didn't come up with this. I'm telling you, this is the methodology I use because this is the methodology that they use, and I'm actually pretty good with using this methodology. I am not the one like screaming about outcomes and robberies and all this other weird shit that you do damn near every fucking week. But anyway, it is what it is.
Well, let me interject, guys. We're gonna wrap this up because this guy is going long, but it's a damn good debate. I have to say this, man. Very scientific. Both of you guys make very, very great points. Very hard to disagree with either one of you, but I'm not gonna be the one to decide who's won here. But to wrap this up, I'll give you guys a closing arguments. I think Tony, you lead it off, so I guess you get the last closing argument. So, Smoke, you go ahead and start your closing arguments.
Like I was saying, trying to figure out who won a fight by who's the most bruised, that is absolutely not how you do damage, right? It's also not how you determine success. It's not any fucking thing having to do with like judging who fucking won a fight. It just isn't. Period fucking dot. Whether it's AJ and Usyk, whether it's blah, 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 and it put in two fighters. It's just not the way fights are scored.
So again, he keeps trying to shift it to say something that I never said. I never said bruising is the way that you judge a fight. I never once made that claim. All I said was you could tell by how damaged Usyk was after the first fight that AJ had more success than he did in the second fight, because in the second fight, Usyk looked like he had barely been in a fight. Now, when it comes down to scoring a fight with the judges, if the judges get a score 115 to 113 for Usyk, and on my scorecard, I have it 115 to 113 for Usyk, that means I'm very accurate with my scoring. And like I said, you could go to any one of my lives and see that I am very accurate with my scoring, because my scorecards end up with the same points as the judges, and all but 4 of them, which is something that Smoke does not have. He can claim he has it. Please show it. Show us you revealing, while a fight's going on, the scorecard before, and then you having dead on what the judges have. You don't have that. I do. That's the difference here when it comes to scoring. So obviously I must know how to do it if all my scorecards, but for over 140, come out correct with the ringside judges. That's my closing.
Yeah, what you just said is just not true. Of course I can do it. Like, what are you talking about?
In the closing arguments.
And now he's trying to rebuttal.
No, I got it. I'm just telling you. I get it. I'm just saying.
He don't even know how to
No, I'm not rebutting.
Okay, guys. Hey, I got to go. I got to earn some clothes.
No, I heard it. I'm just saying. Like, if you just lie and rebut,
I'm going to let him argue with himself.
Yeah, hold up. I got to beat you too, Tony. But hey, that's the end of the closing arguments. You guys had a great debate. Now, I'm not going to decide who won this. Tony left, but
of course he did. He told a bunch of lies. He talked a bunch of bullshit, told a lie, and then ran. Like, what the fuck? The fuck out of here, bro.
Look, anyway. I hear you, but look, it was a great debate. It was spirited. It was respectful, as I've laid out the rule. I appreciate you guys being respectful, but there was a little bit of disrespect here and there, which I understand is a debate.
That wasn't that bad, bro. But that's Tony. That's how we do it. But like, I'll go on his live. I'll say exactly what I said to him. He'll laugh or whatever.
Yeah. I appreciate you to get the smoke, but like I said, though, I'm not going to decide who won there. I'm going to put up a poll. I got to figure out how I got to do this because I rarely put up polls. I did it once and I forgot how to do it. Got to go to analytics, I believe. Yeah, and I got to find out there. I'll figure it out, man. But hey, it was a great debate. Both of you guys made great points, man. I couldn't really disagree with either one of you. So again, I'll reserve my comments to after the poll is decided. Then we'll go from there. But since you're on Smoke, I'm going to ask you real quickly, what's your take about Robert Garcia's comments about AJ?
I didn't hear him. I clicked on to hear what they were. I thought you were going to go through them, but I missed that part of your stream. I got here a little late, I think.
It's okay. I'll go through some of them because there's quite a few interesting comments here. He went on to say that Joshua pretty much wasn't mentally good enough to beat Usyk, and he felt that after the 10th round he was mentally gone. After that, and he also said that he also said that we didn't want to give him any instructions after the 10th round because we felt that wasn't going to register in his mind anyway. So we kind of let him go out there and see what he can do. So I felt that was pretty bizarre right there. But it's not quite surprising because
I'm sorry. Repeat that one part again. What did you say?
He said in a comment here, he gave an interview with a an Hispanic publication. He said that they let Joshua go out after the 10th round, didn't give him any instructions at all because he felt that he wasn't going to register those instructions anyway. He felt that they said let him go out there and figure it out on his own, pretty much.
Wow, yeah, he hasn't been with him long enough. I hear you. He doesn't know the fighter.
Yeah, but to me, that's an indication that he's not going to be back in the AJ camp. But they've already fired him. They just haven't announced it yet. So what do you think?
I think Lennox Lewis is looking like a prophet.
Yeah. I mean, well, Lennox did tell him, did warn him. He did tell him that several things. One, you need to stay off the weights. Josh won't do that. He won't listen. He loves to be on those weights. Number two, you do need to get out of your comfort zone. You need somebody who's experienced. You need somebody who's going to tell you things you don't want to hear.
But no, he said you don't go to college with your elementary school teacher. Like basically, it's time to leave your amateur coaching behind and get to a professional coach. And what Robert Garcia is saying is, yeah, at this point, we can't actually impart anything on him. Like it's just going to confuse him. He doesn't know what to do. He's got to go through this portion himself. That's the familiarity that's missing between a professional coach and his fighter.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing too is that this is one thing why I said he should never took in this rematch to initially. And the reason why I say that is because one, as I predicted, he will never beat Usyk in that rematch, especially if it's within a year. That's not going to happen. Not much is going to change. Number two, you need to get him out of his comfort zone. He's so caught up in the amateur system set up in England where he doesn't have to pay for anything. He doesn't have to invest in much into the training, the quality training that he needs to get him prepared for certain fights. So I think that was a bad habit that caught up with him. Same thing I said about Deontay with some of his bad habits that caught up with him that led to his Tyson Fury loss, the second fight that is. So it gets to a point at some time when fighters are going to have to learn things the hard way, especially if you're in a position like Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. You feel that you don't have to fix something that's not broken, but at the same time, you realize that you have a lot of flaws that you have to work on. You're not going to get away with that for so long when you fight certain fighters like Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. So eventually, at some point, sometime, you have to learn the hard way to realize you got to have to make some changes. Unfortunately, Anthony Joshua, Tyson, and Deontay Wilder are not the only fighters that have succumbed to that type of situation where they felt that they shouldn't fix something that's not broken, but we realize it's broken. And then when they take a difficult loss, they realize they have to make some changes to get better. Now, as far as Joshua, as Robert Garcia said, it seems to me that Robert Garcia has indicated that it's not going to register with Joshua. You're not going to change him no matter what you do. You're not going to change him. So I guess that's what I take on that. But it is what it is.
I mean, it could very well just mean in this moment. In this moment, they don't have the rapport, right? Like he doesn't know what instruction to give him in a manner that would have that he's confident that Joshua would take it and it not further and not make things worse.
Right.
Right. Because you can give a guy instruction and because you guys don't have a language built up, right? He might misinterpret your instruction and he, like a misunderstanding can make things even worse. So it's kind of like, yeah, at this point you're on your own. I got here, kind of late in the process. And now you're in a place where I've given you what I can, what I feel like you can reasonably absorb, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know what, guys? I'm having difficulties putting up this poll here, but I'll go ahead and make this easier for you guys. Who won the debate between Tony Reviews and Get the Smoke? Press 1 for Tony. Press 2 for Smoke.
Come on, don't do it to it. Don't do it. Just let a debate just be a debate. Let's just.
All right, I hear you, but the chat
because the methodology is off, right? The methodology is
again. They requested it, and some of the guys requested it, so I'm going to oblige. So 1 for Tony if you think he won the debate, or 2 for Smoke if you think he won the debate. So you guys let me know in the chat. And I'll tally the final numbers. But anyways, back to Joshua and the Robert Garcia situation. Yeah, it's an indication that Robert Garcia is not coming back from for another fight with Joshua. If Joshua wants to keep Garcia along, then me personally, what he needs to do is get away from the UK, go to America, train there, and get out of your comfort zone, man. Because I think that's what he needs. Because he's so used to his comfort zone to the point that it's really caught him off guard. And I also think that he needs to get out of the UK because I think all the distractions there is really taking a toll on him mentally. So I think he needs to get away from the UK, take some fights in the US, take some fights elsewhere outside the UK. That's my opinion. But as far as that's concerned, Eddie Hearns has offered Deontay Wilder a lot of offers. Like he's desperate to get him, man. I don't know what that's all about. I mean, what do you think? Because Eddie Hearns revealed that he sent out 2 offers to Deontay Wilder. One for a fight with Joshua. That was before the Usyk rematch. I don't know why he's offering him a fight before the rematch. I don't know because some indication that he knew that Usyk was going to beat him, or 2. And then he's also sent out an offer for Wilder to fight Dillian White in Saudi Arabia for a lot of money. What do you think on that in 2023?
I want to see both those fights. I get the thirst is real. Especially out there in the desert, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the indicate. So Robert Garcia, I think, is a good coach for like to come up with strategies and probably even prepare you to beat Usyk. I just didn't think he had enough time with him. But now I don't think he's ever going to fight Usyk again. So why keep Robert Garcia around? But that doesn't mean he still needs a new coach. I just don't know that Robert. Maybe Jonathan Banks might be a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there might be several good ones out there.
Virgil
Better
Hunter or Rodney Shields. They have
I
experience.
like Ronnie Shields. Ronnie Shields is a little bit like I don't know if he might be a little bit complex. It takes a while, I think, for fighters to get into the Ronnie Shields system.
Yeah.
I was thinking of somebody that's a little bit like easier to comprehend, a little bit more basic. That's what I was saying. Jonathan Banks. He's like pretty fucking basic, but he's really good at like situational boxing and like what to do, like how to combat different styles, kind of thing.
Right.
And he's good fighting tall and using his size and all that shit effectively, which I don't think AJ really knows how to. But yeah, anyway, point being, yes, I do think, but he needs to get out of his comfort zone. Yes, I do think it's evidence of Robert Garcia leaving, not because Robert Garcia is necessarily a bad coach, but it's just like, what does Robert Garcia really give you outside of a really good strategy for beating Usyk, right? So, but yeah, as far as like White and fucking Wilder and AJ, man, I've been waiting for those fights for 4 years. I want to see them all. I would, before I saw White, I would probably like to see the Ruiz fight.
Absolutely. Yeah,
right?
I think that fight's already locked in for next year anyway. That's if Wilder and Ruiz get past their
So it's kind of like White's a little bit like on the back burner. So I would rather see, Helenius and then Ruiz and then AJ.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, those fights are long overdue, but unfortunately, these fights have to happen with both, with all these fighters have taken losses and they're on the decline. Wilder, we have to wait and see if he's able to regain his form against Elenius. He looks good on the gym. It's like he's actually doing the things that he never wanted to do. He never wanted to hit the speed back. He never wanted to do road work. He's actually doing it. So I guess his Malik Scott has influenced him to say, hey, look, man, you got to get out of your comfort zone. That's the reason why you took those losses to Fury. You know what I mean? You got to, if you want to get better at the world level, you got to do the things that you're not accustomed to. So I've seen him doing it. He's looking good. He's looking good on the speed bag. He's shortened his punches on the pads. He's looked like he's working on some inside game too in the workout. So he's doing some good stuff. Let's just hope it all translates into the Helenius fight. So we'll see on that. But yeah, man, it seems like Eddie Hearn is desperate at this point to sign him because right now his stable and matchroom is under a huge decline. A lot of his fighters have left. His top earning fighters have taken a lot of losses back to back. Canelo to Bivol, White to Fury, Usyk to Joshua. Joshua to Usyk twice. So it's not looking good right now for Matchroom. Is he's desperate to sign him, and I think the reason why I say sign is because no, he's not wanting to get Deontay Wilder. He's not offering Deontay Wilder just to fight Joshua and White. He wants to lock him into some options, so like multi-fight deals, and Wilder doesn't want to do that. So that's why Wilder doesn't want to deal with it. He's like, look, why is he always offering me some options? Me personally, it's my opinion. I think maybe Deontay should to take some options with Eddie Hearn. I think he should. That's my opinion. But what do you think?
I'm sorry. What was the question?
Well, the question is that Hearn wants to sign. I think Hearn is offering Wilder these 2 fights, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's not offering him just to get those one-off fights. I think he's offering Wilder to take the fights on the condition that you sign with me on some options. Because Eddie Hearn wants options on Deontay Wilder should he beat those guys. That's what he wants. And
I don't mind, options. I mean, he doesn't have very many fighters, right? It really, like, if you really want to keep it all the way funky, right?
Yeah.
I want to see Usyk over goddamn AJ and White, right? So it's kind of like I'm thinking Fury's gonna beat Usyk, and then I want Wilder to fight Usyk, and then I want fucking Wilder to fight AJ after that. Like, does he have Usyk? If he has Usyk, AJ, and White, why not do a 3-fight deal?
Yeah, well, the thing is, he doesn't have options on Usyk anymore. He doesn't have options on.
Yeah, so if all you got is fucking AJ and White, then what options for what? Like, you don't have guys.
That's true. He doesn't really. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Why would you want to sign Wilder? You don't have any other heavyweights. I mean, White and Joshua are on the decline right now. Yeah, give him those 2 fights, but who else can you offer him? I can't really think of anybody else that Matchroom has at all. I really can't think of.
Yeah, like, I mean, this option is like really like a 2-fight option. I mean, I guess if there's nobody else out there, but even then, like, why you can do that? Well, anyway.
Yeah, that just shows that Matchroom's on a huge decline. They used to have all the heavyweights, but now they're all gone, except for AJ and White. So, well, not saying all of them, but some of them. So, yeah. I mean, what else is there? Just to talk, moving along real quickly here. I'm gonna go back to my list of topics here because there's a lot. Usyk is ranked number 1 pound for pound by the Ring magazine. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, Ring magazine like sucks. The pound for pound list sucks. Usyk is a really good fighter. Whatever. AJ was not on a pound for pound list. I was beating AJ, make you a pound for pound guy. I don't know, whatever. Like, they had Wilder versus Fury being number 1 and number 2. But now Usyk is the number 1 pound for pound, and is he like the Ring? I don't fucking know, dude. Ring fucking sucks. Ever since Golden Boys fucking bought it, it's been less and less credible. I don't understand like how they get their lineal rank. I don't get it. What do you think?
Well, you know what? Look, I guess it makes sense if you take into account Usyk's cruiserweight run, and you also take into account his run at heavyweight where he beat Joshua twice and Chisora once. So I guess you look at those factors and the fact that he's undefeated and he's also a lineal heavyweight champion now, and he's got the lineal prestige over Fury, then you take that into account. I get it. I know there's this thing about not ranking heavyweights in the pound for pound list. That should not happen. I get it on one aspect of it, but you have to make exceptions when it comes to that because I know I listened to one panel, I forgot what it was, and one person mentioned a comment that you can only rank heavyweights if they moved up, like Alexander Usyk. That's not necessarily true because Lennox Lewis and Vladimir Klitschko were rated on the pound for pound list, and they were only fought at one weight class, right? Because the reason why they were ranked because they were never rated number 1, but the reason why they were ranked because of what they did in their divisions, the way they cleaned them out. That's the reason why the exception was made. But on the other hand, I defer back to 1989 when Mike Tyson was rated the number 1 fighter in the world pound for pound. At the time, who was rated at behind Mike Tyson? You had Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., you had Pernell Whitaker, Michael Nunn, Marlon Starlin, Raul Perez, Antonio Saragusa, Meldrick Taylor. Who else was there? I think I named all of them. Now, Can any of those fighters at the time were they rated? Who, if any of those fighters at the time, let's say Mike Tyson didn't deserve to be on there because he's a heavyweight. If you take him off, who was a much better fighter than him at that time who deserved to be number one? The other names that I just named. Exactly, no one. So
in 1989, I mean,
yeah.
I could say it depends on what your methodology is, right? I think everybody just moves up, right?
Yeah,
because it's he's presumably taking the place of the number 11 guy who's probably not a heavyweight either.
right. Yeah, exactly. So let's look at it this way. Julio Cesar Chavez, right? He was like what? Like he was like 56 or 58, about 60.
I think he became I think he was fight of the year in 1990, the very next year.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was because of the Belgian Taylor fight. Now, let me just say this. Julio Cesar Chavez, his biggest wins at that point was against Edwin Rosario. That was a damn good win, Hall of Fame win. Roger Mayweather and Rafael Lima, right? Those are his best wins at that point. You have Pernell Whitaker. Yes, he had some decent wins. So we can't talk, that's okay. Michael Nunn, his best wins against Sambu Kalambe and Frank Tate, right? Marlon Starling had some good wins over Milton McCory and I think also Simon Brown. I think did they fight? I have to go back and check. No, they never fought. Simon Brown and Marlon Starling never fought. But anyway, that's just my point. My point is that, okay, Mike Tyson cleaned out the heavyweight division. He ran through it, right, like a freight train. He beat the Tony Tuckers. He beat the Tony Tubbs. He got the Larry Holmes and the Michael Spinks wins, Hall of Fame wins, right? So you got the Trevor Burbicks. You got the Pinklin Thomas. So basically, all those wins combined were far better than all the other wins that the guys who were rated behind him at the time were. They're way better. So my point is that you can rank a heavyweight even if they never moved in weight classes like Usyk did. He only moved up from cruiserweight, right? You could still rank a heavyweight pound for pound number one, depending on what you have to take in some exceptions, like what Tyson did. Because at that time, no one was better than Tyson. No one. So yeah, that was just my point. But as far as the Ring Magazine ranking Usyk number one pound for pound, I could see that. But at the same time, Usyk, there's a lot more fighters that are more valuable for that ranking than Usyk at this point. I get that argument, but at the same time, it's what you've done for me lately. Now Inoue, he's fighting for undisputed against Paul Butler, but again, people criticize Inoue because of his opposition. I get it because he beat Donaire, which is his biggest win, but Donaire was like already old at the time. I get it. But then you have Terrence Crawford, but he hasn't been quite active though. That's a problem with Terrence, is that he's not been quite as active. Earl Spence, I get it, but if you look at the opposition that Usyk fought compared to Spence, Usyk arguably has beaten better opposition than Spence. So I don't know I know everybody has their opinion. They have their criteria. That's why pound for pound is very subjective. But at the end of the day, I could see why the Ring Magazine rated him pound for pound number one. So that's my take. What else we got here? Oh yeah, speaking of Ring Magazine, Devin Haney, he's upset at the Ring Magazine because they haven't put him on the pound for pound list. And in fact, he's so angry to the point that he's vacating his belt. He's sending it back to them. So if he stays true to his word, that's exactly what he's going to do. What's your take on that?
Wow. So wow, man. I just had a really long discussion with this with Fanon actually yesterday.
Oh, okay.
On his live, right? Right. I think most people or most boxing enthusiasts, and then most boxing enthusiasts who also think that who feel some kind of way about the treatment of Black fighters in America, right? I think those two groups have now Venn diagram have some overlap where they are universally applauding what Devin Haney did and the reasons behind it, right? Like, how do you have Loma on there and not have me on there? And I have your ring thing, right? But then the back and forth got a little bit weird, and then Devin Haney showed that he is not he's a 23-year-old kid. A little bit in that thing, but the revolutionary act of kicking putting the Ring Magazine in the dustbin, in the recycling bin, I applaud full-heartedly. I think it's been ridiculous. Like, I think the amount of evidence that that Golden Boy's stewardship of Ring Magazine has been biased and self-serving.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's
do agree
now
with
like
your point.
disgustingly overwhelming, like at this point, right?
Yeah, I do agree to your extent on that point because I never understood for the life of me why they rated Gennady Golovkin pound for pound number one at one time. I'm like, what in the world? I mean,
Yeah,
Golovkin hasn't literally done anything during that ranking. I mean, look, he's beaten some fighters, some good fighters he had, but whenever he stepped up, some of the fights, that couple of fights that he's won were a bit controversial. So I don't understand why he was rated pound for pound number one. I mean, that was just, I mean, look, at that time, I know why they did it because he was in line to fight Canelo Alvarez, and if Canelo beat him, then that goes to show that Canelo should be worthy pound for pound number one because he beat the number one guy who's rated pound for pound number one, but not on many people's standards because Golovkin was not universally recognized as the pound for pound best. It was just on the Ring magazine he was rated pound for pound number one, which was very bizarre. I was like, whoa. I was like, no, I know it's subjective, but it's subjectivity, but he didn't deserve that ranking at the time. I think who was rated number two behind him at the time? Andre Ward? Yeah, Andre Ward. No. Actually, Golovkin became number one after Andre Ward retired, after he beat Kovalev the second time.
Well,
So
the number one guy, in 2015, I want to say Vlad was in there. Who was the number one guy?
in
Above
2015,
Chocolatito. It was Chocolatito was there for a minute above Ward and Triple G, and I want to say Loma.
No, Loma, I think he didn't get onto that list. Yeah, he got on that list, but I think he was like ranked number 9 or something like that. On that list was Nayo Inoue. He was barely creeping in there. I think.
Yeah, not anyway. Got there in 2016. We're talking like 2015, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. What you call it? Yamanaka. Yeah, Shinshin Yamanaka. He was on there.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there. And who else was there? I think. No, not Estrada. He wasn't on there until he beat Saramba Sai. Sarisa Ket was on. Well, actually, he got on there after he beat Chocolatito twice. What else? Yeah, 2015. I don't quite remember that list. Pacquiao was off that list.
Yeah, no, Pacquiao was there, but Floyd wasn't.
Yeah, because he retired.
I mean,
Tim Bradley on that
right,
list?
but he retired a bunch of times. That was some fucking dumb shit. He fought like 3 times after that. Like that was in 2015.
True. Wasn't Tim Bradley on that list too?
Yeah, Tim Bradley was there. And this is like this is after I'm thinking of the list after the Pacquiao and Floyd fight. Manny was there.
You know what? Let me look it up because I know they have an archive on that. Let me see who was there. This is the end of the year rankings, by the way. So let me see. In the end of the year,
I want to say like Vlad didn't make the list. Monster didn't make the list. And then there's somebody else who didn't make the list. That was and I'm talking about the ESPN list. I don't know if there's the Ring list or I think it's the ESPN list.
I'm actually looking at it right now. So if you look at the pound for pound, let's see. Hold on. This is heavyweights. We're not talking about heavyweights. Pound for pound.
Yeah, I think I was actually going off the ESPN list this entire time, like off man, like now.
Yeah, I'm going off the Ring actually.
Yeah.
Let's see. Wait, hold on here. This is weird. Okay, where am I looking at? Okay. All right, so this right here is the end of the year ranking. I don't even have it here. Okay, give me a minute. End of the year 2015 annual end of the year. Yes, bear with me for 1 second here. I think this is it. All right, so 2015. Well, they have all the weight classes. I'm looking for pound for pound. Oh well. All right, it is what it is. I think I take a stab at this one. So yeah, I think Tyson Fury was on there too after he beat Klitschko at one point. I think he climbed up in there after that at the end of the year, pound for pound. But other than that, yeah. So yeah, that year was that was a bizarre year to say the least. But anyhow, like I said, going back to the initial point about Devin Haney, I mean, for him to drop the belt. Look, I understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, I don't know why he's putting so much energy into why he's not rated pound for pound number one. He should just go about his business, continue to fight, and continue to impress. That's all you got. That's all you can do. I can understand his, be not being rated. I get it, but why is he going after ESPN? Because they don't even have him on their pound for pound list. I don't. That's kind of bizarre. But hey, it is what it is. But anyways, real quickly before I wrap this up, I want to get your take on this. I think I went over this already, but I want to see what your thoughts on Bob Arum coming out saying that Usyk and Fury undisputed fight won't happen maybe until 2023. Any thoughts on that? Do you think that Fury's going to avoid that fight, and do you think the mandatory is going to be called in because of Bob Arum's statements?
Oh, okay, hold on. The mandatory. The Usyk was a WBO mandatory. Right. White was a WBC mandatory, and Pulev was the IBF mandatory.
Right.
The last one would be the WBA. Wasn't that like Povetkin way back in the day? So that would mean
4 years ago.
They've changed the rules. So now the mandatory is handled by the world champion. So it'd be Dubois, the world champion, fighting him. I don't know. Dubois as a mandatory.
Oh, that's easy pickings.
Is IBF, who's the IBF guy? That was kind of a while ago. I don't know if they're doing it now.
Hergovich is the mandatory now because he beat Julie Zhang.
All right, so we got a potential Hergovich or a potential Dubois.
Well, just to stop you there real quickly, Dubois is actually supposed to be scheduling. He's supposed to be penciled in to fight Dillian White, but we don't know how far that fight's along. But that's the rumor. But if he is going to fight Dillian White, then that means that Michael Hunter, the winner of Michael Hunter versus Hughie Fury winner, will become the mandatory challenger to fight Usyk.
Wait a minute. For which sanctioning body?
The WBA.
But the WBA mandatory, the super doesn't have mandatories. Only the world does.
Well, Joshua was a super champion, and Povetkin was.
But see, they changed. Remember the associated commissions? They said they had to consolidate belts, and so they got rid of the interim. And then they made the world have mandatories, and now the world has to fight the super every like 16 or 18 months.
Okay. So that means that Dubois might get the next shot then.
Yeah, it would be the world that gets the next shot for the super. So all those mandatory things would just be for the world belt.
Also, they changed the rule after the Povetkin fight.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
It was like right after Tank got his belt after Tank got his belt at 140. They changed it like right after that. And that that's why Tank relinquished the belts and all the shit. Like everybody like had to consolidate the thing. Like what the ruling came down that all of the commission, there's too many belts in boxing, and WBA and the WBC were like the most egregious, of course. And so they had to consolidate a whole bunch of shit.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, Dubois just defended that belt against. Well, the WBA regular mandatory Trevor Bryan just defended that against Dubois. Well, defended. They lost. So that means Dubois now will have to fight. That means he will have to fight the super champion.
The winner, either he fights the super champion, and then he need to go through like the final eliminator process or whatever that looks like in the WBA in order to fight another mandatory. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that would be Dubois' Mando. Wow.
Interesting. So that means, the WBA that's a lot of confusion there because ideally they would be the next in the rotation. So since it looks like they may have to put that off a little bit longer based on what's going on because Hunter and Fury, which is Hughie Fury, that is, they're scheduled to fight next month. So that I don't know if the WBA is going to call the super champion. The regular champion fight Usyk at the time, but it looks like the IBF. When I've been hearing, the IBF may be calling their mandatory next. So, which is Filip Hergovich. Now, here's my thing. The reason why I'm bringing up this Bob Arum comment because why is it now all of a sudden they're pushing into February, March of next year? I thought December was the day they wanted to get this to go on to get that fight to happen. So
well. I think it's just the dates filled up really fast, and now there's no really good dates. And I don't know, like, is Usyk waiting around for fucking Fury? I mean, didn't Usyk say he's fighting Fury or nobody?
Yeah, that's what he said.
So, like, all this other stuff is like kind of moot if Usyk is a man of his word, right?
Yeah. So if that's the case, then Usyk may be vacating the belt. He may be stripped if he
I
doesn't
think
want to.
Usyk not fighting Wilder is a goddamn duck.
Oh, well, we gotta go on that one now. Why you say that?
Because I think he gets tens of millions of dollars to fight the guy, and I think Wilder is free to fight him, and I think Wilder is a Hall of Famer, that his same age and active in the same weight class.
Okay, well, fair enough, but Wilder's already occupied with Hellenians, and he's gonna have.
I'm not saying fight him next. I'm not saying he needs to fight him next. I still feel like Fury is the main fight to make, but the idea that it's going to be Fury or nobody to me is a blatant duck of Wilder.
Well, what about the other guys like Philip Herkovich and Daniel Dubois?
Yeah, whatever. None of them dudes even had a fucking title fight yet. Like,
I get you, but if he doesn't fight them, like you said, then that's a duck on his.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, all right. So, like I said, Wilder is tens of millions of dollars. And you get tens of millions of dollars to fight those other guys? Probably not, right?
Yeah.
Maybe because he's that big, but I don't think so. I don't think Usyk is tens of millions of dollars big yet. That's the first part of it. He's not going to get the same reward for those fights. It doesn't even, and he's also not getting the same recognition because Wilder is a former champion and a future Hall of Famer. So it's like these are not anywhere near the same stakes or the same prestige. It's not even the same like caliber fighter. Like,
all right, well, I mean, look, I mean, at the end of the day, Wilder has to work his way back into contention right now. So
he's in contention. He's in contention now. It's just that he's busy, right? He's getting a tune-up fight, and I'm not saying fight him next. As a matter of fact, let me be very clear. I think Fury is the priority. I don't think he should fight Wilder instead of fighting Fury. I think he should definitely fight Fury. I'm saying that if he only fights Fury.
Right. Well, look, I mean, I can understand where he's coming from, and look, I get what you're saying, but Usyk's had a long career. Not talking about a pro career. Look how many amateur fights that man had. He's had over 350 amateur fights and lost only 15. He had 20 pro fights, and he's had some tough pro fights as well because he just went into it like after his 9th or 8th pro fight, and with the big dogs, with those heavy elite cruiserweights and heavyweights. So he's had a very tough career, a very long one at that. So I can understand where he's coming from a mental standpoint. He's like, to me, it seems like, you know what? I'm 35 years old. I'm going on 36. I don't really have much time left. I had a very long career. That all goes back to my amateur days, and I ended WSB semi-pro career. It's like my time is winding down, and I don't have much time left. So I can understand why he wants the Fury fight, because he wants to accomplish something that only Evander Holyfield was able to do, and he wants to repeat that. Not only be undisputed cruiserweight champ, but also be the undisputed heavyweight champion. So I understand where he's coming from. But if he doesn't fight Wilder, I get what he's saying. But to me, it's not the end of be all for Usyk. All right.
No, I'm not saying it's the end all and be all. I'm saying that it's going to be there on his record, like the same way. Like, bro, we talk, especially you and I, like, and you, not just you and I together, but you as an individual going in your like YouTube like travels and how long you've been doing it and the people that you interact with. You hear and you've been part of these conversations about Sonny Liston, like Marky Marciano ducking Sonny Liston. Or you hear about?
Let me stop you right there on that one. Let me make something clear on that. First one, that never happened because
I'm just saying. I'm not even saying like whether or not it's true or not true. I'm just saying it's part of the conversation, right? We still even from like this, we're going on what was that like 70 years ago?
Yeah,
right. It's still part of the conversation. You still hear people talking about how Lennox Lewis ducked Vladimir Klitschko. Right, you still hear that stuff, even though that's like over 20 years, a couple decades ago.
And I see what you're saying.
Right. So the idea that like if those two, and to me, I don't think that either one of those things are plausible. Right. I feel like Sonny Liston was way too fucking young, and Lennox Lewis was way too fucking old. Right, for the Vladimir Klitschko, like he had like gray fucking chest hair and all that shit. Like, but you're talking about now two guys who are like literally the same fucking age. It's not like both of them are kind of long in the tooth. It's not like Usyk is like slowing down or some shit like that. It's not like it's a young up and comer and shit like that. It literally is just the kind of guy that is a nightmare for your style.
Yeah. Well, I see what you're saying, but going back to this, to Sonny Liston and Rocky Marciano. First of all, Sonny Liston was barely a prospect when Marciano was reigning heavyweight champion, and he's at the end of his career. He fought Archie Moore, so Liston was not even nowhere close to title contention at the time. So I don't know where that idea of Rocky Marciano ducking Sonny Liston ever came from. I don't know who brought that up, but yeah, I've been hearing that myself. But I'm like, well, they were far apart from each other. I don't know how
Exactly.
Marciano could have ducked that fight, but I will be fair though. If you want to talk about ducking somebody, you could have mentioned Floyd Patterson because that was a fight that Floyd Patterson wanted for so long, and he was he wouldn't wanted that fight. But there was like it was both sides to every story. It was Marciano's team who didn't want it, and then all of a sudden there was Patterson's team who didn't want it because the fact that Gus Custamano, who was his trainer and manager at the time, said that we're going to take our time. We're not going to go into the Marciano fight. Some words to that effect, but it is what it is on that. But I just wanted to clear the air on that one. But I don't know. We agree to disagree here. I don't see Usyk not fighting Wilder if he chooses to retire. I don't see that as a sign of a duck, but it is what it is. Unless Wilder offers to fight to him and he avoids him, then I can see where you're coming from. But other than that,
I feel like it is more of it is equal amount of a duck as for either Floyd Patterson or even more of a duck than Sonny, way more of a duck than Sonny Liston, right? And way more of a duck than fucking Vladimir Klitschko.
I disagree with that because Patterson was vocal about getting that Marciano fight when he was fighting that light heavyweight, when he was light heavyweight champion of the world. So
no, I'm saying I said it's at least as much big a duck as that because Wilder is vocal about fighting Usyk. He's trying to get the Usyk fight.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what he said. He'll want it, but we'll see if they make the offers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the being vocal thing for Floyd Patterson. Yeah, it's not like Wilder's not vocal.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I make a small correction. Floyd Patterson was never light heavyweight champion of the world. I made a small correction there. My bad. But when Floyd Patterson was a contender, he wanted that Marciano fight, and that's where the bickering between
right. So the idea, I think that the train of thought for the Sonny Liston is that they were both like mob held guys, and the mobs knew who it was. And Sonny Liston was held back. Yeah, he was still in his prospect stage, but he was dangerous, knocking everybody the fuck out, and he was being held back as a prospect. They thought that he had the goods. He didn't just have the fights yet.
Probably because if you look at it, Marciano retired in 1951, and Liston only had like 12 fights in. So I don't think he was even ranked. So how could Marciano be ducking him when Liston wasn't even ranked?
Well, because of how rankings work. Like I was saying, they're two mob controlled guys.
Right.
And that's how rankings worked back then. It was in a cigar filled room, and
I mean, that's possible. That's possible that the mob.
Right. That's how the rationale goes. I've heard that although Rocky Marciano's manager or something was he was Italian, but he wasn't actually like mob or whatever. I think he was like there's evidence of being part of like an Italian Irish mob kind of shit, but we don't know. These are all just conjecture. All I'm saying is this is like if 70 years from now, with 70 years from the fact, we're still talking about fucking Marciano and Sonny Liston and Marciano versus Floyd Patterson. We should be in 70 years talking about how Usyk didn't fucking fight Wilder. Like the dude, there's no goddamn reason for this dude to fucking not fight him other than, oh, you know what? Like I'm one fight too many. Like I only got one fight left in me. Like give me a fucking break, dude.
Dude, have you watched Usyk in his career? What he went through, man? Going back to the
I've watched all these guys go. He hasn't gone through anything that tells me he doesn't have 5 fights left in him.
Dude had over 350 amateur fights and tough fights, by the way. Very brutal amateur fights that he had.
Awesome. Hey, great.
Well, wait, hold on. Very tough pro fights going all the way back to his cruiserweight when he got into his first world title fight in his 7th, 8th pro fight, and then went very difficult after that. But I'm just saying though.
I'm not saying that he hasn't had a hard career and a hard time of it. I'm just telling you that I don't see evidence of him not being able to fight a couple times. I bet if Wilder was a fucking soft touch, for the same amount of thing. If he didn't punch like a mule kicking, according to Luis Ortiz's manager, then we wouldn't be having this conversation, because it'd just be a guy who's worth tens of millions of dollars that wasn't going to be a big fucking a huge risk for you, who's also a Hall of Famer. Like, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Let me ask you this. What does Usyk got to prove to fight Wilder if he decides to retire and not get the Fury fight?
What is he? Oh, that he cleaned out the division. He faced all the Hall of Famers that were active around his time. Like, he faced all the guys that were a challenge to his purported king of the division status. He's not like cherry picking his way to he's not cherry picking his way to like this king status.
Okay, does he have anything left to prove if he decides to retire if he doesn't get the Fury fight? Did he have anything left to prove at that point?
I mean, left to prove. Okay, so I don't even think he had anything left to prove necessarily in beating AJ, in fighting AJ. I guess. I mean, if you feel like he wanted to prove that he could be a heavyweight champion too, well, that's done, right? So now everything else is just like cherry on top, right?
Right. Okay. Well, what I'm saying is that, look, I understand your concerns that, okay, if he doesn't fight Wilder, I get it. But at the same time, it doesn't take away from what he was able to do, know, with his very long career as an amateur and a short time as a pro.
Not at all.
Wait, hold on. The fact is, many people will rank Alexander Usyk as one of the greatest fighters of all time at this point. He is. He's all of Famer, first ballot, no question about it. So even if he doesn't fight Wilder, trust me, I would love to see the Wilder fight. I want to see it too. But I could understand if he doesn't get the Fury fight and he decides to retire. What does he have to prove at that point?
Okay, so I think you brought up a really good point, and I'm glad you did. Do you think that there's a difference between being a Hall of Famer and an all-time great?
Yeah, I get so, because sometimes being a Hall of Fame can be very subjective, because there are certain guys who are put in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, should not be in there, like Jess Willer, Arturo Gatti, no disrespect to him, God rest his soul.
Laszlo Cap.
Yeah, Bobby Chacon, maybe to some extent, people argue that he shouldn't be in there, God rest his soul.
Ken Buchanan? Ken Buchanan?
Ken Buchanan? I guess there's some argument there, but to be fair, though, he's more deserving than the other guys that I named. Riddick Bowe is another one. I mean, I know he's got the Holyfield trilogy. That's the reason why he got that's the reason why he got in based off that trilogy. But other than that, I get where you're coming from. But Usyk shouldn't be compared to those guys. He's done way more with those guys ever done in their careers.
That wasn't my point. My point was just tying being ATG to the Hall of Fame, because I think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't think he's an ATG, right?
Why
I think
not?
Like if I was so to me, right? ATG is, you have to have some ATG competition, or at least Hall of Fame competition, right? Okay. So to me, say again. No, I don't think any of those guys are Hall of Famer. I don't think Huck is getting in. I don't think Bradis is getting in. I don't think Garcia is getting in. I don't think Hunter's getting in. I don't think Joe Joyce is getting in. Like, none of those dudes are Hall of Famers. No.
Joshua.
AJ maybe.
Okay.
But I mean, that's maybe AJ. Like, he's a bubble guy. But for me, there's maybe 25 to 30% of the Hall of Fame are ATGs. Right. Okay. So I think that he will definitely be a Hall of Famer. I don't think that you can make an argument for him being an ATG.
Really? I mean, especially what he did at cruiserweight?
No, I think you can make an argument for him being one of the best cruiserweights to ever live, but I don't think that makes you an ATG.
Why not? Evander Holyfield got in.
Yeah, because Evander Holyfield is one of the best. Because Evander Holyfield is an ATG, but Dwight Muhammad Qawi is also one of the best cruiserweights that ever lived, but he's not an ATG. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer. He's not an ATG.
Yeah, he is. Dwight Muhammad Qawi was more known for his light heavyweight run. So he was one of the best.
I'm just saying. He was a cruiserweight. He's one of the best ever to be a cruiserweight too.
Yeah. So
he's not one of the best ever light. To me, he's not one of the best ever light heavyweights. He is one of the best ever light cruiserweights. I mean, sorry, one of the best cruiserweights. He's a great light heavyweight. Don't get me wrong, but the light heavyweight division is just too goddamn storied. Like, I don't even think he's top 100 great light heavyweight. I mean, light heavyweights.
No, I think he's top 100. Definitely not top 10, but he's definitely top 100.
I don't know. I don't even know. Like, but even so not top 10. What about top 20?
Top 10. No.
How about top 20?
Maybe not top 20, but probably.
How about top 30?
So maybe top 40 at best.
Top 40 at best. All right. All right.
But he's still all-time great, though.
I don't even listen. I'm I'm not mad at him. It's just that this cruiserweight division, like both of us are older than the cruiserweight division. That's all I'm saying. Like you can be one of the best cruiserweights to ever live without being an ATG.
Okay, well, I mean, at the same time, look who he fought there. You got Bradis, was a very difficult fight, very good, very great cruiserweight. Bradis,
good.
In my opinion,
He's one of the best.
If anybody, look, if you pick any name in there that he beat, right, at cruiserweight, as far as Hall of Fame is confirmed. Yeah, hold on, big boy. I'll give you like, give me a second. You can jump on.
Yeah, we chop it up on this Sunday. Yeah, church, baby.
Well,
thanks for hosting this episode of church.
Let me just say this. Bradis, and all the names that Usyk beat at cruiserweight, the closest name that will get close to maybe Hall of Fame caliber is Bradis. You may have a point. He may not get in because of who he is and people not know him. But I think Bradis is the closest one that you could put into Hall of Fame.
I think Bradis and Huck. Right, Bradis isn't bad either. Huck is. They both of them have really, storied careers at cruiserweight. Right, I'm not mad at him. It's just that ATG. They're not even Hall of Fame. Like, forget ATG. Like that, and that's the thing about the ATG class. Like the ATG, most of them have like multiple Hall of Famers on their careers.
Since you brought up the cruiserweight, Evander Holyfield beat everybody. The only ATG name he had there is Dwight Muhammad Qawi. So that's the only Hall of Famer he has at cruiserweight. But I think also the Carlos De Leon. He wasn't
also a Hall of Famer.
Though, he should be, but he's not in there. So
you sure he's not there?
No, he's not.
I think he is.
No, he's
not.
But
anyway, he's one of the best ever cruiserweights also. But anyway, he's one of the best ever to do it at cruiserweight.
Yeah, Bradis is going to be ranked up there too. Bradis and
I'm not saying Bradis is not. I'm saying Bradis and Huck are one of the best ever at cruiserweight. They're just not Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas Qawi is Hall of Fame. Right. And not only that, he's not the only Hall of Famer that fucking Holyfield beat.
That's true. He isn't. Yeah. He all the other Hall of Fame wins he got was at heavyweight. Bo.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what makes him ATG for his career is all the Hall of Fame wins that he has.
Yeah. So I get that, but Lisa Usyk got a Hall of Fame win at heavyweight. Potentially.
Maybe if you think AJ potentially. I think that AJ will get in. Probably he'll get in, right? I think that more likely than not he will get in. But like we got 2 title reigns, one of 6 title defenses at the most. The other was a 1 defense title reign. I don't know, man. But the gold medal works in his favor. The unifications, I think, work in his favor. The fight of the year, I think, works in his favor. I think he'll ultimately get in. Also, I don't think he's going to retire. So I think ultimately he'll get in. But was he a Hall of Famer the night he fought Usyk?
At that point, I think he was. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. I'm not going to argue it. I think it may be arguable, but I wouldn't argue it. Right.
Well, let me ask you this then: to change your mind, if he beats Fury, and which I think Usyk will do, if he fights Fury and beats him, and if he fights Wilder and beats them, then in your mind he's an all-time great.
Woo, that's hard.
If he does that,
now you're in there. Like now, I would say that it's arguable, but I wouldn't argue it. The same way I'm saying anything.
Well,
I'm not going to argue it. I would say it's arguable because you got Hall of Famers who may or may not. Like I feel like Wilder is a Hall of Famer based on like precedent, right? Not necessarily by like quality of like wins against quality of opposition, right?
Yeah,
and I think that's right. So that even though I think Wilder's a Hall of Famer. It's one of those things where it's like he's a bronze medalist. He had 10 title defenses. He got knockout of the year. He got fight of the year. Like, all of that shit, sure, it gets you in the hall. And that trilogy he had with Tyson Fury, he's able to break some fucking revenue gates. All this like weird shit that gets him into the Hall of Fame. But it's kind of a weird win, right? So it's still like, okay, you could pick that win apart. It is a Hall of Fame win, but it's Wilder, right? Yeah. AJ, maybe also. Fury, outside of Vlad and fucking Wilder, what's he got?
Chisora in his prime,
good right? He's got good wins. Yeah, I think Christian Hammer's a good win.
White.
Yeah, Dylan White has already been knocked out a couple times.
Yeah, but still good win.
But that's what I'm saying. What makes it arguable? Even though I wouldn't argue it, right? I'm saying that I wouldn't argue it, but I could see the argument.
Yeah. Fair enough. But
Like for
like I
my own
said, though,
methodology, right? I'd be like,
I kind
you know, to
of
be true to
flabbergasted
myself,
on it.
to have my own personal integrity, I'd be like, you know what? AJ is probably a Hall of Famer. Then Fury is probably a Hall of Famer. Then Wilder is a Hall of Famer.
Well,
Right?
those three will get in, but at the same time, though, Wilder and Fury are going to be criticized because of their lack of quality of opposition.
Exactly.
They're going to be
I think they
criticized, but
both get in, but they're
yeah,
both of their best opposition is each other.
that's pretty much that's
And then
arguably
like
that's pretty
Vladimir
much what it is.
Klitschko, I mean, Fury's got Vladimir Klitschko over him, so it's kind of like, it's just the other things that I think that Wilder and Fury are together combined for that fight of the year.
Yeah.
So,
One of the
but then
best
Wilder got the
trilogies,
knockout
one
of the
best
year.
trilogies too.
by
They're going to rank
himself.
them up there. Yeah, they're going to rank their trilogies one of the best. So,
Yeah.
I guess that's what it is. It's kind of like with Riddick Bowe. I kind of put Deontay Wilder in the class of Riddick Bowe and Carlos Zarate in a way. They had, I mean, Riddick Bowe didn't have long title runs like they did, but Carlos Zarate, he didn't really have any big significant wins other than Antonio Somoza. That was his best win, and other than that, he's like his biggest wins is against like his Hall of Fame fights he had. He lost them all against Roberto Gomez and Jeff Fennick. So it's like he got a lot of wins, but against guys who were like overmatched or who were not really that good. So it's kind of like Wilder is in that category with Carlos Zarate. But and the same thing with Riddick Bowe. It's the difference with Riddick Bowe, he's got good quality wins, but his career is like he voided a lot of fights in the 90s against a lot of top heavyweights. So but look, to your point though, I mean, we agree.
A good fight too.
What's up?
Cote was a good fight too.
Who?
Cote, the South African.
Yeah, that was a good decent fight, but other than that,
it's a good fight. I'm just saying he had like some good fight, like, and that's like because it's writers that judge this stuff, right? So they they watch all these goddamn fights and then they cream their fucking shorts over it. So then they ink it up, and that's what I'm saying about Wilder, like because he had like fight of the years and knockouts of the years and all this other like shit that that the writers, like the people who have the votes, value. That's the thing that puts him over the hump when you look at the like Duhauses or name a Wilder title defense that you didn't really like respect, or like an Eric Molina or something.
Molina, we didn't. Yeah, many people crapped on that too, and then Chris Ariella, we crapped on that as well. So, which is rightfully so, because I didn't like those title defenses either. I mean, I gave him a pass on the Eric Molina one, but the Duhauses and the Ariellas, I did not like those title defenses at all. I did not like it.
Well, hold up. Hey,
well, I know
Chris
the Eric Molina
Chris Ariella was a beast.
That dude was shot when Wilder fought him at the time. He was shot.
All right, he wasn't shot yet. Chris Ariella is still fight. What do you mean? They fought in 2015.
But he's not even nowhere a top 10 contender. Nowhere near.
He was a top 10 contender. Okay, he was a top 10 contender last year.
Well, no, he wasn't. What? No.
When he fought Ruiz.
No, first of all, hold up. First of all, when he fought Ruiz, that was supposed to be a tune-up fight for Andy Ruiz after his loss to Anthony Joshua. But then it turned out to be a harder fight than they initially thought. That's why Chris Ariella is getting a lot of admiration and respect. But he was not rated top 10 when he fought Ruiz.
All I'm saying is he was rated top 10 when Wilder fought him, though. You said he was shot.
No, he
wasn't. Hell he wasn't. Oh, okay, hold up a second.
He was injected into the rankings.
No. When Vitaly Klitschko retired, Stavern and Areola were the number 1, number 2 guys at the WBC, and Wilder's number 3. Those two guys fought. Right. And then Wilder fought the loser of that. He fought the winner and the loser of that fight.
Well, guess what, though? I see what you're saying, but Areola wasn't fighting after that. He was taken off the rankings. The only time he got the Wilder fight is because, 1, Povetkin failed the drug test, and 2, the WBC didn't even rank him when he got the Wilder fight. So let me finish. They interjected Areola in the rankings just to get Wilder, to satisfy Wilder for a voluntary defense. He wasn't ranked when he initially fought him.
I think you're changing Stavern. So I think you're mixing up Stavern. No, it's Stavern that happened to, not Areola.
No. You see, we're getting
Stavern was interim champion.
No, I would say Stavern. Stavern went inactive after he lost to Wilder. He had one fight, and then he got it, and then he was supposed to fight Povetkin for the mandatory spot. But he was outside of the race. He'd been inactive for a while.
We got the timelines confused here. We got the timelines confused here. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when Wilder was scheduled to fight Alexander Povetkin. Povetkin failed the drug test. The fight was called off by the WBC, right?
Right, but he had already fought.
Hold on. Wilder was looking for a replacement opponent at the time, right? We were crawling for Brian Jennings to take the fight, but that didn't happen. But who did they get instead? They got Chris Arreola. When they got him, he wasn't even ranked in the WBC before that fight was happened. But as soon as they announced that Chris Arreola would be the guy they preferred, the WBC gave Wilder his blessings and decided to rank Arreola so they could sanction that fight. Correct. That's what happened.
So this is the first. This is the first Povetkin drug, but I thought you were talking about the second one.
No, I was talking about the second one. Yeah,
we're talking about the first one.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So the thing. All right. So the WBC, he was already ranked number 2. The reason why he wasn't right, he was when he fought Stavern.
Well, yeah, that's for the vacant title. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, he was ranked then. Correct. The reason why he was outside of the rankings wasn't because he wasn't good enough to be in the rankings. He wasn't paying sanctioning fees. It's the same thing that happened to Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury when he came back.
Wait, hold on. Does that justify Wilder fighting him?
Yeah, because it's not like because you stopped paying sanctioning fees, you became a worse fighter. Hold on a second. Hold up a second. If you're talking about quality of opposition, you're talking about quality of opposition, not whether or not your dues are up to date.
If you're talking about quality of opposition, paying a sanctioning fee, getting you a ranking doesn't make you quality, does it?
No, it doesn't. Correct. It doesn't.
No, exactly. There's the point.
No, I got you. It's again. I said Arreola was a beast, not because of his ranking. This is the line of conversation you went down. And what's up, Jono? It's been fucking forever since we've been on the panel together. What's up, man? What's up? I hope all's well with you.
Come on, we gotta call a spade for what it is. He was shot when that.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so I will definitely agree. You're saying he was shot then, and that was like what was it like? We're talking 2015,
2016.
So that was like that was 7 years, the better part of a decade.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he's still the dude is still fighting, but he was shot then. But okay, whatever.
He wasn't shot. He was on his way out.
Anyway. I will definitely concede. I would definitely concede, even though I have some issues with the language of saying shot. Don't have any issues with you saying he was no longer in his prime.
Yeah, so at the same time, it does not excuse Wilder for fighting him. I did not like that fight.
Hey, I don't know about excuse him for fighting. I don't think he needs an excuse to fight a guy like Chris Arreola. That's not an excuse in my mind.
He should.
Especially given
my point is that earlier Arreola didn't deserve that shot. He should have been in no position.
I don't know, man. I don't know how a guy who's had what? How many times has he already challenged for the title? He'd fought some really good competition. Like he was a 2-time title challenger at that point.
But what did he do at that point? We're in the business of what we do for me late. What you do for me lately? What did Arreola do at that point to deserve that shot?
Right, but the idea of what you done for me lately,
he was rotting on the shelf for a while, wasn't he? And
I mean, for a while isn't very long. Like it's not like it was not like years passed. Like.
When did he fight Stavern?
I want to say in early 2015, or maybe 2014.
Oh, I thought it was even earlier than that. I thought it was like.
Well, they fought twice. They fought one time for the eliminator, then they fought for the vacant title a couple years after that.
Yeah.
So, look, I get Chris Arreola. I know he's coming back. He's kind of redeemed himself against Andrew Ruiz. But my point is that Wilder should not have fought him, and Arreola didn't deserve even to be a replacement.
I don't know about that, bro. I don't know. I feel like so this idea that like guys who have accomplished a lot in the sport can't like jump over people in rankings.
Wait, what did Arreola accomplish? What did he accomplish?
No, what did Chris Arreola accomplish?
Yeah, what did he accomplish?
I mean, over the guys in front of him, like a fucking Duhaupas, he might as well have been the first guy to fucking step on the moon. Like the fuck. Like guys like Kajanu and fucking Pianetta.
Wait,
put it this way. Who's Chris Arreola's best win? Put it that way.
Who's Chris Arreola's big win? I don't know. Maybe Orlin Norris. That's kind of a weird question. I don't know. He's had a long career. He had a really long fucking career.
Seth Mitchell.
Yeah, something like some fucking old, like you know. Let's see. Let's look up Chris Arreola.
Travis Kaufman.
I'd like to.
I would say
But
Seth.
fucking, but I'm saying, but Olin Norris is a goddamn bad man. Like I'm, like that's what I'm saying. It's not like
he was a former cruiserweight champion and brother of Terry Norris. I get it, but other
no.
than that,
He also fought like great guys and had some good fights and
one Mike
good
Tyson
wins.
too. I know. But look. At the end of the day, I didn't like that. I did not rate that Wilder title fist against Chris Arreola. Yes, he gets credit for defending his title, but I don't rate it. That's just my opinion. That's all it is.
I feel like we're asking some like encyclopedic knowledge over like some lesser known fighters, which is like it would be great if we knew this shit right off the top of our heads, but we don't.
Well, I do.
And I don't even think we should. Like, wait a minute. The turnaround between the Wilder fight and the fucking Stavern fight for Chris Arreola?
Well, I'm sorry, what'd you say? Repeat that.
The turnaround for Bermain Stavern and Chris Arreola. Oh wait, he wasn't inactive fucking at all. He fought Travis Kaufman 6 months fight. Well, Chris Arreola.
He fought Travis Kaufman after the Wilder fight. Did he not?
No, he fought him before the Wilder fight. He fought Fred, like after the Bermain Stavern fight, he fought Curtis Harper, a guy named Curtis Harper, a guy named Fred Cassie, and then a guy named Travis Kaufman. I'm telling you, Stavern was the guy who was inactive, not fucking Arreola.
Yeah, but okay, fair enough. But he wasn't even ranked by the WBC at the time.
I mean, what does it take? Like, neither was Tyson Fury. That doesn't matter. Like the guy had already done what he needed to do in the sport.
Fury, before he fought Wilder the first time, he was ranked after those 2 fights with Pedraza and it's a Fury.
We can
criticize those wins, but the point is difference between Fury is that he was actually ranked, but Arreola was not ranked. They had to put him in there as a blessing for Wilder to get a voluntary defense. That's what they did.
Do you not understand what I'm saying to you? That he was ranked before that. The only reason why he wasn't ranked was because, and he was ranked, not only was he ranked before that, he was ranked highly. He just wasn't paying those sanctioning fees. As soon as he repaid his fees, he put him in the appropriate ranking because of what he's done in the sport.
Did he deserve the shot? Yes or
no? That literally meant okay. So for him to not deserve the shot, somebody would have to be more deserving of the shot.
Well, okay, but again, did he deserve the shot? Yes or no?
I get both.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what I already said.
He wasn't active.
Of course he did. Do you realize this will help? Like maybe John will be more persuaded by this line of.
Yeah, go ahead,
like
Joe,
this
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
When into the WBC rankings, right at spot number 7, because he was the former WBO champion. He was never in the WBC rankings before then. But because of what he had already done in a completely different sanctioning body, he was ranked top 10 in the WBC.
Wait, are you comparing Fury to Arreola? You comparing Fury to Arreola?
Say again?
You comparing Fury to Arreola? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm comparing. I'm saying Joseph Parker. I'm saying the point is, I'm talking about the methodology. The idea of what you've done in the sport is taken into account when you're doing your rankings.
You're talking about Huey Fury, eh?
Oh, okay.
No, I'm talking about Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker, when he entered the WBC rankings, he entered at the spot number 7 because of he'd been the former WBO champion. Right after AJ beat him, he entered the WBC rankings at number 7. So
but are you comparing Chris Arreola to Joseph Parker?
When Dylan White fought him, so what I'm saying to you is when they tabulate their rankings, they look at what you've done in the career. They don't just look at where you are currently in the ranking. They go, okay, what have you done? And Chris Arreola was a former 2-time title challenger. That's why he was able to get in front of people. The same way that Joseph Parker was able to get in front of people because he's a former champion.
Okay, well, first of all, Joseph Parker, hold up, Joe. First of all, Joseph Parker beat far better opposition than Chris Arreola ever did when he was a champion, before he was a champion. Second of all, you can't compare Joseph Parker's situation with Chris Arreola. Yeah, you can't. You can't do it. You cannot do that. At least Joseph Parker had title defenses. Chris Arreola never won a title. He never won it. Yes, he fought for the title 3 times, but he never won it. Or 2 times, I should say. He never won it. So you can't compare the two.
So let me ask you this. You said he fought way better competition. All right, so how would you compare? So how would you compare Jamil McCline to Razlan Kajanu or Huey Fury or Carlos Takam or Andy Ruiz? Those are the best guys, right?
All those guys that he beat. That Chris Arreola fought.
Say again?
Andy Ruiz is better
Say
than all
again?
those guys that Chris Arreola fought. Andy Ruiz is better than all those guys that
Andy
Chris
Ruiz,
Arreola
no,
fought.
I said you said he fought better guys. So I'm talking about the guys he fought, not Joseph
Yeah,
Parker
Anthony
himself.
Joshua.
But you said
Anthony
he
Joshua. DeLeon
Oh no,
White.
you said
You
the Andy Ruiz. Hold up a second. The Andy Ruiz that Joseph Parker fought was better. Has proven to be. He proved himself to be better than Jamil McCline that Chris Arreola fought. How?
First things first. Let me
How
tell you
the
something
fuck
about
did he
Jamil
do that?
McCline. Let me tell you something about Jamil McCline. Yeah, despite his disciplinary issues, he was still an okay fighter. He was a good fighter, all right? He got Shannon Briggs on his record. He beat Samuel Peter. I get all that, all right? But the fact is that Jamil McCline was not was not as accomplished a caliber. Doesn't have the win that stands with Andy Ruiz. He doesn't have that. So that's
Jamil
number
McCline.
one.
He did it. He did at the time that he fought Joseph Parker.
First of all, okay, Joe, when Ariel fought McCline was always on his way out. He was at the end of his career. So why were you counting that win?
Well, I mean, like I said, Jamil McCline at that point. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Jamil McCline at that point had done more in his career than Andy Ruiz did at the point that Joseph Parker fought him.
Okay,
and
well,
Carlos Takam.
who had an overall better career? Wait, who had an overall better career? Andy Ruiz or Jamil McCline?
We're talking the guy that he climbed in the ring through the ropes with.
So you're moving the goalposts on this one because
I'm not moving the goalposts. I'm defining the term. I didn't move it. I never said that it wasn't this. I've always said it was this. You were the one who said better competition. So now I'm talking about his competition. You're talking about his competition after he fought them, as if that says anything about the guy he fought.
Okay. Let me back this up. Okay, so I know you're trying to justify that Wilder defense against Chris Arreola. I get all that. I get it. But again,
that's all I'm doing. That's all.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's cool. We agree to disagree there. But the fact is that there is no way in hell that Wilder should have fought Arreola as a man
come on.
But no, there's no way in hell that Arreola deserves that shot because he was already on a huge decline. He's lost all his big fights. He didn't even fight in an eliminator to even get to even deserve a shot. It doesn't have to be a final eliminator. At least some type of eliminator. He didn't even fight in a contention to get a shot, and yet the WBC just put him in there because Wilder wanted to fight him as a volunteer because Povetkin fucked up. Okay, but the fact is that I just don't think that was justified. I know you're trying your best to justify it. I get it, but it just doesn't fly, bro. I'm sorry, it doesn't.
No, because that's because of because you already have your mind made up that the only reason why he fought him was because Wilder wanted to fight him. And when you say that, you're absolutely disregarding everything Chris Arreola had done up until that point and before that point. Like when you say
what did he do other than lose big fights? What did he do other than lose his big fights?
All right. All right. So for you to make that claim, you would have to say who is more deserving. And the guys that you would come up with also either lost the big fights or didn't deserve a shot any more than Chris Arreola.
Wait. Let me back this up. Then let me ask you this: the guys who ranked at the WBC, who was deserving than who was not more deserving than Chris Arreola? Let's put it that way.
The guys who were ranked ahead of him were Pulev, Povetkin, fucking and actually, Ortiz was ranked high in the Ring magazine, but because he was a WBA interim, he was outside of WBC rankings, right? Okay. But those are the guys that were ranked ahead of fucking Arreola.
Okay, why not Pulev then? Since we brought him up,
because Pulev was fucking injured. He was doing some other. He was supposed to be fighting AJ.
Brian Jennings? He was available. Why not Brian Jennings?
I am not sure about Brian Jennings, but I don't know that Brian Jennings is more deserving than fucking Chris Arreola.
Why not?
I'll tell you why. Both of those
because they got the same thing. Because they're both the same thing.
That's why.
I'll tell you why. Like I said, he also, just like Chris Arreola, just lost his big fights. Right? He's like I think he went 12 with fucking Vlad, and then right after that got stopped by Luis Ortiz. How is that better than fucking Chris Arreola?
All right, go ahead. You want to say something, big boys?
Pulev got stopped by Ortiz?
No. Fucking Jennings did. He said, "Why not Jennings?"
Oh, Jennings. Right.
Okay. Well, you got me there on that one because Jennings was coming off a loss. So yeah, I get that one. But
I'm just saying, like you can come different, but different isn't better just because it's a different guy.
Well, to me, I'll put it this way, man. Yeah. Chris Arreola to me is the US version of Derek Chisora.
Yeah. Yep. Good point. I agree.
I mean, I'm not necessarily mad at that characterization. I'm just saying that the idea that Derek Chisora, I mean, the idea that Derek Chisora never deserved a title shot. I don't know. I think that there was a time when Derek Chisora did deserve a title shot, and the time when he didn't.
Correct. And I didn't think that Areola was doing enough prior to that fight to be ranked as high as he was, but I didn't actually hate the fight. I mean, Chris Areola is always entertaining to watch, but I would have thought there was better fights at the time for Wilder to have than Chris Areola.
I agree.
That was all I had to say about it.
I mean, that is, if you were just to take it in a microcosm, his fights after that. But like I said, I think this is true across all the sanctioning bodies. They take into account a fighter's entire history when they come up with this stuff, right? And we may disagree or agree or whatever the fuck, but that's how to do it. Like that's how people are all up in arms about Keith Thurman jumping the line and being the number one guy in WBC. Well, the guy's a former fucking champ, and Virgil Ortiz has never even had a championship fight. What do you expect? This is how the fucking thing works.
Right.
And they tell you how it works too. Like,
yeah. Well, yeah, let's go back to the original point about Alexander Usyk, about him being all-time great. I know this is where the conversation had began. That's where we drift off to Wilder, but Wilder's still part of it. But what I'm saying is this again, if he doesn't, me personally, and Big Boy, Juno could agree with me on this one. I don't think, even if he doesn't fight Wilder, Usyk says, you know what, I'm done. If I don't get the free fight, I'm done. I'm gonna retire. I'm gonna vacate the belts. To me, he has nothing left to prove. I mean, he's done everything, that going all the way back to his WSB and his long amateur career, beating all the elites there, beating all the elites at cruiserweight, at Joshua at heavyweight, and Chisora, a good contender at heavyweight as well. I don't think he has nothing left to prove at that point. That's just my opinion. He's an all-time great, and he's a Hall of Famer on my, in my book. What do you think, Juno?
Yeah, I think he's definitely a Hall of Famer. Well, he's met the criteria for a Hall of Famer already. As for ATG, I mean, having achieved cruiserweight undisputed in such a short amount of time, beating everybody of any note there, definitely puts him in good stead. But unifying 3 belts at heavyweight and 3 fights at heavyweight as well, that's pretty damn amazing. He kind of skipped the line and didn't have to do all the stuff that the guys used to have to do. They didn't have the super champion becomes mandatory back in the 3-bout era. So he has skipped the line. But if he gets that fight against Tyson Fury and wins it, he's definitely an all-time great. If he doesn't, I don't know. It's a close call. If he retires without fighting anybody else, well, it makes it tough to say an all-time great, because people are going to say he could have done this, he could have done that.
Right.
Like fighting Wilder, but as for fighting Wilder, I don't think Wilder has anything he wants. Unless he offers him a stupid amount of money, how could it be a duck? I mean, he's not a champion, he's not a mandatory, he's just a contender at the moment, isn't he? So,
let me ask you this, though. Do you think that Usyk has anything left to prove at that point if he retires? Regardless if you think he's ATG or not, does he still have nothing? Do you think he has nothing left to, excuse me, does he have anything left to prove even if he doesn't fight Wilder?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, that's where we're in agreement there. I know Spoke may disagree with us on that one.
Yeah. So right. So the idea of having something left to prove is, I don't know if that is I don't know what that means really. Like, he's already a Hall of Famer, so what does that mean? Something left to prove. I think you can make a case for being ATG. I think this case would probably be a lot more solid with Wilder on it versus not having Wilder on it, right? Fury, to me, that just means that you are both undisputed. You're both champion at cruiserweight and heavyweight. See, this whole idea. Like, I feel like people are giving more weight to 4-belt undefeated champion than 1-belt champion, without taking into account what that thing meant. Like, it used to be that you had to fight all the guys on the way up to become champion, right? So you knew who the best was because that one guy fought everybody. Now you got 4 guys who don't fight everybody. I don't understand how that means you're better than those guys who had to fight for 1 belt. It seems like a really weird, like mental gymnastic thing. It's I don't know. It just seems like a contradictory like notion in my mind that like it's harder that like you become an ATG because you were the real champion in 2 weight classes. A lot of guys were the real champion in 2 weight classes. Nobody calls them ATGs. And so when you look at them, like because nobody else could call themselves a champion, then you start looking at the level of competition. In no way, shape, or form is this like ATG level of fucking competition. So to me, yeah, I like the idea of having more to prove only if you're trying to separate him from the other Hall of Famers and ATGs, which I don't even know if you get there with both Fury and Wilder, to be honest with you.
Well, that's a fair point. I'm not saying that if he beats those guys, he'll be up there with like in the top 10 all-time greats overall. I don't think he'll be there either way. But my point is he'll be up on the list regardless, whether you rank him there or not. As far as top 10 is concerned, I don't think he'll definitely get there because that's like a long, steep battle to do. But other than that, to me, like I say, I agree with Juno's point. You make a good point. Even if he beats Wilder or Fury, it doesn't really, get him up there with those other top 10 greats. But other than that, I think, in my opinion, and me and Juno's opinion, I just think if he decides to retire after looking back what he did as an amateur, and that's a very long career. That's like what he spent like 10 years as an amateur. Or 7-8 years. That's a long time to be an amateur. So I think you take that into account and what he did in a short time as a pro. And those are very, very, very tough fights that he took. And
I don't know,
fights, but I just think that I can sympathize what he's coming from. If he doesn't get the Fury fight and decides to call it a career, then I can't blame him. I don't think he has.
Well, here's the thing.
At that point.
But here's the thing about that amateur stuff. Like, if you're a grown-ass man fighting little kids, and if you're state subsidized while everybody else is being like have to pay for this shit from their mom and pop, are you actually an amateur? And how much fucking credit should I give you?
Okay, well, he beat the guys that we see today. He beat Steverchenko. He beat Badu Jack. He beat Beterbiev twice. He beat Joe Joyce, amongst others. Nestor.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. And he beat Joe Joyce in like a semi-pro thing where that blurs the line, like further blurred the line between his thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, this idea about Usyk and his like number of fights kind of thing is just like all a bunch of fucking marketing cap to me, for real. Like, oh, he did it in such short fights. The reason why he did it in such fewer fights is because he took fucking forever to turn pro, because he hung out beating up on little fucking kids for forever. Well, and he's able to put a shortcut. And he's able to gain. Let me finish. And he's able to game the system as it exists today in order to shortcut the fucking process. I don't consider those like ATG kind of qualities. Like, I understand the accomplishments, and I'm down with. I'm not trying to. I'm literally not trying to like take away from it. I'm only trying to put it in perspective when it comes to the other ATGs and how it's a little bit disrespectful to not take that into account while you're just like trying to bolster up his resume for him being included into these fucking ranks.
Do you have any idea how difficult the Beterbiev fights was and the Derevchenko fights and the Joe Joyce fights were? I mean, he fought Derevchenko and Joe Joyce when he was 17, 18 years old. And they have fast.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad at his. Like, I'm not saying that when he was 17, 18 years old, he wasn't having tough fights. But Wilfred Benitez wasn't fighting amateurs from lower weight classes at 17 years old. He's fighting grown ass men as a goddamn champion, right? And that's ATG shit to me. That's my only fucking point. Like, if you want to do this ATG thing, then we can. But like, let's stop with the whole like, yeah, I fought a guy who's like a light heavyweight, and I'm like 2 weight classes above him. I never even competed as a goddamn professional in the weight classes I fought those dudes as an amateur as a kid. I was like, what are we doing?
Well, Beterbiev has 3 years old. Is 3 years older than me. He had like 200 amateur fights when he first fought Usyk. And Usyk didn't even have a chance to win that fight when they fought the first or second time around, and he beat him. So what is that? How can you not take that?
I'm telling you. I'm not saying that he didn't fight other guys. Like, I didn't say that he had zero pro like hard or tough amateur fights against zero proven amateur fucking great guys. Like, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that it also has to be taken into context of what it is we're talking about. Beterbiev has never once in his day fought at fucking cruiserweight or heavyweight. What you're talking about is his rise. What you're talking about is the guys that he had to fight on the way up through the amateur rank, which is fine.
Started his career as a middleweight.
Say again?
He started his career as a middleweight. He was 17 years old. He started his career as a middleweight.
Who's the he? Who's the he?
Usyk.
Usyk started his career. What are you talking about? His career, his amateur career?
Yeah, in middleweight.
How are you calling that a career? It's
It's
an
a
amateur
career.
rank. It's literally not a career.
It is
So
a career.
amateur
By
doesn't mean
definition,
anything
not a
to you.
career.
Then is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, and again, I like I just said, I don't know why you just brought this whole thing up.
Well,
Like I
Evander
said,
Holyfield winning a medal.
I didn't bring up Evander Holyfield's amateur record at all.
Okay.
The reason why you're bringing up it is because you have to. I don't have to do that. For the ATGs, for the other ATGs, not one single one of them do I have to bring up their amateur careers. None of them.
Really? Evander Holyfield's career?
I don't have to bring it up in order to make an argument for me to make an argument for Evander Holyfield being ATG. I don't have to mention his amateur career at all.
Oh, people do.
Well, all
They
you have
do,
to say
but I don't
then
have
is
to.
Usyk was undisputed and unified 3-belt champion at heavyweight. Sorry, undisputed at cruiserweight, and you 3-belt unified champion at heavyweight
Yes.
in 20 fights. Nobody else has done that.
And
Oh Lord.
ATG, there you go.
I don't understand what you're saying. Like, I don't. That how does that make you an ATG? Like, what is that? Like, is it? Do you feel like
Nobody else has done it?
So let me ask you this. Do you think that Leon Spinks becoming the lineal champion and undisputed champion of heavyweight champion in 8 fights means he's an ATG?
Oh, no.
Because nobody else has ever done that.
Yeah, let me answer that one. First things first, Leon Spinks didn't do anything after he won that fight against.
So the answer is no.
Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. I see where you're going with that. If Leon Spinks had made like 5 or 6 other title defenses within, like, say, 15 pro fights, he was undefeated, and he had a long amateur career himself, and he was a gold medalist, right? If he had done that at least, then maybe he would have been ranked an all-time great. But since he didn't do that and drugs derailed his career, that was it for him. As far as
I got you. But you're obfuscating what his point was. You're going on into a different tangent. What his point was is how fast you do something equals you're an all-time great.
Well,
your point
but
has no bearing on whether or not you're
also cleaned out the division at cruiserweight on the way, didn't he?
Yeah,
he cleaned it out, fought everybody.
That's fine, but that now you're making a different argument. You said you're cleaning out a cruiserweight, and that's fine that you cruise out a thin division. But that doesn't make you an all-time great. Neither does how fast you do it.
Well, that's exactly what he did. Smoke. That's exactly what Juno was saying. Usyk did all that within 20 pro fights. That's what
correct. That's what I got it. That's what I'm telling you. How fast you do it is immaterial, and also cleaning out a thin division is immaterial if you're talking about ATGs.
You know,
cleaning out a thin division. Let me tell you this. Let me this. Do you think that Bud Crawford, his run at 140 pounds, is ATG? Or how about Canelo's run at 168? Are those ATG runs, even though he cleared out the division?
Oh, Lord. Okay, we're going
the Canelo one's looking like it because he fought all 4 champions within 11 months.
Okay.
That's massive.
Great. I didn't say it wasn't impressive. We're talking about ATGs. Like, if you want to talk about guys who are ATGs, now you're going to get impressive. And you'll find that these guys, you're going to have to squint really fucking close and start talking about shit just like titles and accomplishments, and not start talking about the guys that they fucking fought.
Okay.
You're running in circles, man. I don't know what you're calling the cruiserweight division when you're running either.
You're running in circles. I understand, and I'm gonna make it very clear.
I don't know why you brought up Leon Spinks, because Leon Spinks.
I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why, Dan. Because he said because he said how fast he did it. He said how fast he did it.
He said that Usyk not only did it in a fast time, but look what he also done in a short time span.
Correct. You're still talking about how fast he did it.
Yeah, well, let me finish. He beat Glowacki in his 8th pro fight or 9th pro fight, breaking Evander Holyfield record. Give him credit for that. Then after that, he fought, guys like Michael Hunter and the Bezo Machuno, who were very good cruiserweights. Then he went on to beat Marco Huck. Then he went on to beat Marius Bradis. Then he went on to beat Murat Garcia. Then beat Tony Bellew. Clean out that cruiserweight division with all the best that were there within 15 pro fights. Then goes up to heavyweight in 3 fights and becomes unified lineal heavyweight champion of the world. And yet you're saying that that's not ATG status? What he was able to do?
It isn't. All right, and I'll tell you how it isn't.
It's not a thin division.
And I'll tell you how it isn't, right? So first off, the guys that he fought, right? If you talk about first off, it's not even the best in the cruiserweight division, which is relatively young. Not only is it not ATG, it ain't even the best in cruiserweight division, right? So this guy, the idea that you did it, I know you're not saying it. And again, you're trying to take over Jono's argument and make a different argument that Jono didn't make. What Jono said was he did this in few fights. as if the speed at which he did it made it an ATG. Meanwhile, the speed in which you do an accomplishment has no bearing on whether or not you're an ATG at all. This is literally only the fucking. This is the mantra of guys from Eastern Europe who fucking turn pro late because they hang out. Let me finish.
All right,
because
well,
they hang out in the amateur and the pro am ranks like Lomachenko and fucking Usyk. So they pretend like they were fucking. They just started but when you look at it. You look at Evander Holyfield. How old was he when he became fucking undisputed champion at cruiserweight? 24. How old was fucking Usyk? 32.
Okay, well, Usyk had over 350.
Exactly. This idea of it being
why
fast.
Are you using that against Usyk?
I'm telling you because you're blurring the lines about what fast looks like. Fast is in a fight. I got it. What you're blurring the lines in between amateur is, a pro is, and a pro am is.
Okay, hold up. Let me interject here. You misunderstood Juno's point. The reason why
I didn't misunderstand Juno's point.
Yes, you did.
No,
hold up. Let me explain it.
No, you don't understand my point. You're misunderstanding my point.
Bro. We're not going to do this. You're not going to jump over people.
Okay, right? Go ahead, bro.
Go ahead. All right. Okay. All right. I think you misunderstood Juno's point. The point what he was trying to make is that, yes, Usyk did it in a fast time span, but he was correlating to the fact of what he was able to do within 20 pro fights. That's all Juno was doing. There's nothing what he said was not hard to understand. All right.
Yeah, again, I've already said for some reason you have a great time understanding what he's saying and completely ignoring what I'm saying. I already addressed all that shit with his amateur career, his pro amateur career, and now his pro career. You guys want to toggle in between this shit. Meanwhile, when you brought up fucking Joe Joyce, you already sunk your case. That was actually a pro fight that does not show up on his pro fucking resume. That is the issue. Let me finish. That is the issue. That is the issue with talking about how fast Usyk did shit. It wasn't fast. He hung out in the fucking amateurs for fucking ever. Then he had all these pro-am fights that you don't know if he's a pro or an amateur. And now you just want to look at all of these pro fights and say, oh, look at this fucking guy. Meanwhile, he's old as shit. He's totally fucking experienced. And I don't get why all of this, you're pretending like he's some fresh. Let me finish. I don't understand why you're pretending like Usyk is some fresh-faced guy that's been doing this shit only for 20 fights.
Go ahead, Tony. You want to go ahead? Because I got a lot to say.
Here's the problem, Darren. This is what you're going to realize with Smoke. He's going to go to the most extreme case, right? And try to make the most extreme as if it is a norm. So he brought up Leon Spinks, right? As if that is comparable to what Usyk did. Leon Spinks went on to fight a half-dead Muhammad Ali, and then in the very next fight got his ass whooped by decision. However, here's what he's not trying to do. They're not equal. Leon Spinks fought a guy at the end of his career. Usyk beat all these guys in the prime of their career. These weren't guys who were in their last days, in their twilight moments. These were guys at their prime, at their best. Breedis, who Usyk beat at cruiserweight, is arguably one of the top 5 cruiserweights of all time. After Usyk beat him, Breedis got his title right back and went on to be a long reigning champion until he just lost at 37, 38 years old. So he continued to reign after Usyk was there to be the number 1 guy at cruiserweight, even after losing Usyk, which was his only loss until here lately. And like I said, he's 37, 38 years old. Eventually, age is going to catch up with him. Moving past that, Usyk goes up to heavyweight to face a prime Anthony Joshua. Not Anthony Joshua, who's already starting to show signs of Parkinson. Not a guy who's breaking down. A prime Anthony Joshua, who he beat not once, but twice. Leon Spinks couldn't beat Muhammad Ali twice because he lost in a rematch. So they're not even comparable. It's stupid what he's saying, and I don't even know why it's being addressed. Hopefully, I have not lost reception because I'm driving. But on that note, I'm gonna fall off to the back because it's just audacious that he would compare Usyk to Leon Spinks. It's just insanity.
Again, right? I get you don't understand comparisons or examples, and I know you like to shit and then run, right? So yeah, bounce again. The issue was that Jono said that he did it so fast that should be a consideration for ATG. My only argument is how fast you accomplish something has no bearing on whether or not you're an ATG. It's a very weird metric to even discuss, especially when it comes to guys like Usyk, who have these weird kind of like quasi amateur and pro fucking careers. Now, maybe you understand my point. Maybe you don't, but I've made it like at least 4 fucking times at this point.
Well, let me enter some bit of civility here, some bit of parliamentary order here. But what Chris Eubank Senior would say. Look, I think I get what you're saying on one aspect. You're saying, look, just because you win a title at a fast rate doesn't make you ATG, like Guillermo Rigondeaux did. But look what he did. He hasn't really done much after he won his titles. I mean, he done a couple things here and there. I think that's where you're getting at. But where we're trying to tell you is that what Juno and Tony and myself are saying is that, yes, not only that Usyk won the title at a fast rate, but look what else he was able to do after that. Defending his titles, going to everybody's backyard, not complaining about it. He's beat every champion in the backyard and taking their titles away from them, including Anthony Joshua. He did all that within 20 pro fights. 20. And yet,
again, this idea of 20 pro fights is immaterial when you're talking about him, comparing him to the ATGs. Whether or not they did it in 20 fights or 40 fights, if they fought way better fucking competition, who the fuck cares about the accomplishment? If you want to say he has ATG accomplishments, like he's collecting titles, great. That doesn't make him an ATG. That makes him a Hall of Famer, maybe. Like, because there's guys who are actually undisputed who've not even in the Hall of Fame. So the idea that you're just collecting titles doesn't even make you a Hall of Famer, much less an ATG.
Well, look, I guess we're trying to get you to understand is that we're telling you all the aspects that would get you to Hall of Fame. We're not just telling you just because you win a title and you did this in a short time span is going to get you to Hall of Fame. I get what you're saying, but if you're going to wait, hold up. If you're saying that Usyk was on a level of Leon Spinks, then you have an argument. But he's not on that level. No, I mean by on that level, he superseded what Leon Spinks did, and that's exactly what Tony Reviews has said. And the fact is also too, what I want to point out is I'm going to ask you a hypothetical. Since you say all these things about doing all these things in short science, short doesn't make you ATG. I see what you're saying, but let me ask you this though, hypothetically. Why not ask you this? Is Sugar Ray Leonard all-time ATG? Yes or no?
I definitely think Sugar Ray Leonard is an ATG.
All right. Well,
I think most people think that he's an ATG. Say again?
Yeah, but he's only had 40 pro fights.
So I don't think how many fights you have. I don't think determines whether that's an ATG.
Well, you said just a second ago, if you have 40 pro fights, doesn't make you ATG. That's what you just said.
No, I said how fast you do something. Like this idea of you only had so many fights, right? Then all of that makes you an ATG. I think is immaterial. I don't think it's a metric that needs to be determined. Hold up a second.
Great. You just said that.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that. I said how fast you do something. Once again, I've said this a million fucking times. I'll say it a million more if I have to. How fast you do something has nothing to do with whether or not you're an ATG. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're a Hall of Famer. Nothing at all. The idea that he did it in 20 fights or 40 fights is immaterial. What Leon Spinks was able to do in 8 fights does not make him an all-time great. It doesn't make him anything. He was able to do something. He was able to do something that was amazing in 8 fights. It didn't even get him to the Hall of Fame, even though it was able to become undisputed and lineal in those 8 fights.
Let me go back to Sugar Ray Leonard real quickly. Look what Sugar Ray Leonard did in his first 32 fights. Let's bring that up. He beat Wilfred Benitez, right? Hall of Famer. He did that in his 26th pro fight. He went on to beat Roberto Duran in his 30th pro fight. And after that, he beat Tommy Hearns in his 32nd pro fight. He did all that, and he was an undisputed welterweight champion in 32 fights. Now, he was also Olympic gold medalist, and he had a very good long amateur career. When Sugar Ray Leonard did all that in less than 32 pro fights, does that make him an ATG at that point? Yes or no?
Okay, right. So the reason why I think Sugar Ray Leonard is an ATG is because of his entire career. Like as a pro, I didn't really even throw. Let me finish my point, because you asked me a question about him being ATG, and then you started to parse portions of his career to see if at that point he's an ATG. Let me finish, bro. So now you're asking me which portion of his career. Now you're just asking me about which portion of his career would I consider him an ATG. What I'm telling you is, no matter what he did, like when it comes to Usyk, even if he fought AJ. And even if he fought Fury and Wilder, I don't know if I would put him in an ATG, right? So we're extrapolating that he even fights the guy. He says he's only going to fight one guy, right? But let's say he fought both of them. I still don't know if he's an ATG, and that's me looking at Usyk's entire career as a professional, right? Like not like throwing in his amateur, but I could throw in his amateur because if you want to do the whole thing, we can. I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying I don't need that for my other guys that I think are ATGs. I don't live when I look at Floyd Mayweather, I don't go, yeah, he's an ATG because of what he did at the amateurs. Or like like Mike Tyson, another bubble guy. I don't think like his amateur career.
Okay, well, that case, based off your argument, that Sugar Ray Leonard is not an ATG because of what he did in his 30 pro fights, and he had a long.
No, I didn't. Well. I said he's an ATG because of his entire career. You're trying to parse out a portion of it, and see if that portion was he an ATG. I'm saying as a professional.
Well, exactly. Usyk's entire career. That's exactly. As a professional. Wait. Hold up. You say that we cannot use. Wait, hold up. Let me finish.
I'm not saying
You're
anything.
saying that I can't, or Juno, anybody else cannot use Usyk's entire career. Wait. You're getting caught up here.
I didn't say anything, bro. You keep saying wait. I didn't say anything.
Wait. Let me finish. Why
as
can't
a professional?
Entire career. Okay.
I literally said his entire career as a professional.
Okay, I'm using.
Like I don't understand why you need to parse this thing out. It's a weird thing. You're trying to parse my words, and you're parsing his. What?
Okay, let me finish my point, and then you can interject. That's how we do it. This is how we do in the parliamentary procedure. Okay, let me say this. Hold up. Okay, so Sugar Ray Leonard. Wait, are you gonna let me finish? Or are you gonna?
I am. I'm saying you keep saying hold up. I'm not saying anything, bro.
Okay, well let me ask you this. Sugar Ray Leonard did all those things in 30 pro fights. He was an undisputed champion. He beat 3 Hall of Famers, and Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran, and Wilfred Benitez. So that right there, he was already all-time great. He only had 30 pro fights. Am I correct? Yes or no?
I don't know. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. It doesn't matter to me. But go ahead.
Okay, we'll leave it there because
it doesn't matter. I can see that you could be correct. I don't mind. If you are, you're not. It's immaterial.
Because the whole point, I was using that argument to see if we can have some consistency here. So you're not willing to say that Sugar Ray Leonard is an all-time great, although he did all those things in 30 pro fights, but yet Usyk is not because he did it in 20 pro fights. Okay.
Again, like I said to you, the reason why, and I don't understand like why I feel like I'm speaking English and I don't think I'm being very like deceptive. I think it's very straightforward what I'm saying to you. The reason why I have Sugar Ray Leonard as an all-time great is because his entire professional career, not just 30 fights. I believe he had more than 30 fights in his professional career. We could talk about the highlights of his ATG professional career, and that's fine. That's a different conversation than at which point did he become an ATG. If you want me to look at his career and say, hey, at which point did you think he was an ATG? We can have that conversation. I don't think 30 fights is the thing that I would use as a metric. It would be at which point. It may be 35 fights. It may be 32 fights. It could be 28 fights. The number of fights, like I said, the number of fights is immaterial. It could be 20 fights. It could be 40 fights. The point being, who did you fight and what happened in those fights? That's what makes you an ATG, not how fast you did it.
Did exactly that. And let me ask you this, and let me reframe the question. I'm going to get into another opponent another fighter that you
I hope you understand what I'm saying. Like at least
I kind of get what you're saying, but let me ask you. Let me reframe the question.
What I'm saying. We're going to change it. Okay, we're going in a different direction. Come on, let's go. Yeah.
No, we're not. We're on the same topic. Sugar Ray Leonard retired in 1982 after he beat. Wait. When he beat Tommy Hearns, he retired in 1982. That was 30 fights in. Is he ATG at that point?
Okay, so now you want to determine which point he was an ATG. Let me look at it. Let me pull up Sugar Ray Leonard's resume, and then I'll tell you at which point he was. I considered him an ATG. Right? We can have that conversation. But just so you understand, that's the reason why I'm saying it is.
I already told you he beat 3 Hall of Famers at that point.
I got it. I understand, but you want to ask me about. But you want to ask me about my determination. Again,
no. I'm asking you. Wait, hold up. I'm asking you. I'm using your formula. I'm asking you. Is he ATG at that point when he retired the first time?
I understand.
Yes or no?
What I'm telling you. No? I don't know. Perhaps I can tell you. I can look it up and then I can tell you definitively. Maybe what you're saying, I would agree with you. Maybe not. Let me see.
All right, well, let me ask you this then. Another question.
Oh my fucking God, dude! Like,
oh my
good
fucking
Lord.
God.
I don't understand. I don't understand. Like what? Like what makes you think? Okay, go ahead. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm just trying to answer
what.
your question. I'm trying to answer your question because I feel like you're getting around the thing
No,
and
I
not
don't need a long
actually.
winded answer. I just
Okay, so
need a
yeah,
short
go ahead.
answer. Yes or no?
I mean, okay,
Yes
so
or no?
let me answer your question. I can give you
I
a
like this
answer.
answer. It's been a long time.
I
But
know.
let me
I
answer
like
this.
it. I like it too. But I mean, it would be great if it was going somewhere and not
All
just
right,
me
all right,
being
let me ask you.
interrogated and you should try to figure out whether I
No,
believe what I
I'm
say I
just
believe.
you. No,
Bro, that's what's
my
happening.
whole
Like
point.
all you try to do is see if I
No, I'm
believe what
not
I say I
interrogating
believe.
you, bro. Don't
Yeah,
take it
yes, you
personal.
are.
I'm
Like
just
you're about to ask me another question, even though you won't let me speak. Even though you won't let me
nah, bro.
actually
You jumping
get
on
to
everybody
the
else's
point
point.
of
You
the
don't
heart
have
of your
to.
question. Like literally, you're speaking while I'm speaking. This has absolutely nothing to do with the truth, but everything to do with
All
rhetoric.
right, well, I'll tell you
That's
what.
cool.
I'll tell you what. I'm
But
gonna
that's
let you
cool.
have
We
the
can
floor.
do that.
Go ahead.
You can ask me
Go
another
ahead. I'm
question.
gonna let you have the
Go
floor.
ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Let you have the floor. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
All right,
I'm
let me
just
ask you
trying
another
to tell you. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, ask away.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You just go miss your point. Go ahead.
I was going to say to
All
you,
right.
if you really want to know when and
Uh-huh.
maybe there's a delay. There might be a delay in our
Maybe a
thing, but I'm
delay.
not
Yeah,
sure.
but go ahead.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
go.
um, if you would like for me to answer the question of when I thought Sugar Ray Leonard became an ATG, according to me, and then you want to attack
Yeah.
that to see if I believe what I believe, I have no problem. But the way that you're
Okay.
framing these questions, right, they don't have anything to do with like the Usyk thing. They seem to be disanalogous, and we're just going down rabbit holes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that. But let me ask you this then. Andre Ward. Now, if he did fight Sergey Kovalev, would he been an ATG at that point?
I don't know that Andre Ward is an ATG. Like that's
Okay.
a tough and that is a tough argument to make. Like I like Andre Ward. I don't know that I would. I don't know if I would make the argument for him being an ATG. Also, I'm kind of biased for Andre Ward, so
But I would.
it's kind of like I would accuse myself.
Yeah. Hey, let me just say this. I mean, me personally, I put Andre Ward as an all-time great because what he did at super middleweight, he beat all the best there. That was all the best fighters there, with the exception of Lucia Bute. Regardless how we felt about whether Lucia Bute ducked that fight or not, or Ward did, whoever, but he did fight Bute. But at the end of the day, he did far better work than Bute at super middleweight, and he did all that within 26 pro fights. So and that's a super middleweight, and he did all that. He beat all those guys there. So and then Chad Dawson and Sergey Kovalev on top. But
all right. So super middleweight is a really weird division, right? So we bump right up against that whole concept about being the best in the division, and then whether or not that makes you an ATG. Because there's some divisions you could say that about, like welterweight or like heavyweight or light heavyweight, those old story division or middleweight. Maybe you could say like the best in that division could also be an ATG, like when you get to Bernard Hopkins kind of shit, right? But then you guys like super middleweight, where it's a really weird one, kind of like junior middleweight, where you had a whole bunch of killers that went through there, but they didn't stay there for very long. They didn't use their entire career there. Or didn't have accomplishments. So like the most accomplished guy you could argue is Canelo Alvarez. But you could also argue maybe that's Joe Calzaghe because he had all the belts that Canelo had. He just didn't have them at the same time.
True.
But you could maybe say like Andre Ward has a better run than Calzaghe because the guy he faced, or maybe it's Joe Calzaghe. Like the 168-pound division is really weird about like who's the best because you had guys like Roy Jones at the 168 pounds. So no one's gonna say Canelo's better than Roy Jones, but Canelo did more at 168 than Roy Jones. So it's just like that's just a very fucking strange division for this argument about like who's the best and who's the best resume and all this other shit. It's just like a jump. It's not an old division. It's had killers that didn't do very much in the division. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a very weird. I agree with you on that one. But my point is that look, regardless of whether how many pro fights you had or not, it depends on how long you could accomplish. Depends. You could have 50 pro fights, and you then all of a sudden later you start fight top level competition like Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. did. I think he did it like he started to fight on world level after 45 fights or something like that. But the fact is that he was always active, and that's the reason why he was cramming a lot of fights in. He was fighting in Mexico for the most part within his first 40 or so pro fights. But my point is that even if that's the case, and you start to step up and you start to beat all these guys that are, the best guys available in your division world level, and you don't matter how long does it take, but if you do it in a short time span or whether a long-term time span, you still all time great either way. My point is that there is no timetable or no variable or no requirement of what you should accomplish within the time.
Then now we finally agree. Like how fast you do it or how long it takes. It's fucking immaterial. Like the idea that Julio Cesar Chavez had like 100 pro fights, but like Usyk had 400 amateur fights. Like who did it fast? Like what are we talking about right now? And then also like anyway, I like the how fast you develop is how fast you develop. What you did, like Loma doing his shit, and whether or not it was 3 fights he became a champion or 433 fights he did as champion, he became a fucking champion. So now it's just kind of like when I'm looking at the ATG guys, I'm literally only looking at their professional careers. Because for me, when you start looking at their amateur careers, then like why would I do that for this guy and I haven't done that for any other ATG ever? Right. So it's just kind of like that thing. Like that's where like my metric ends. Like we can open up a whole nother category of guys who should be in the ATG because of their amateur careers too. Right. And I think you'll still find a bunch of ATGs that we have would still be ATGs, like Muhammad Ali or Sugar Ray Leonard, shit like that, or Sweet Pea.
Well, right? I mean, going back to your point real quickly, just to slightly interject. That's how Sugar Ray Leonard and Andre Ward gets evaluated. Not only their short pro career, but what they did in the amateurs as well. They take that into account. So
I think people who say that Roy Jones and ATG,
not Roy Jones, I'm talking about Andre Ward. And
Andre Ward. Oh, right. So Andre Ward would be one of those guys. Right. I would agree with you that like the Guillermo Rigondeaux and the fucking Lomas and the Usyks, all those guys are going to be like you're going to throw their amateurs in there.
Yeah.
AJ even maybe.
Yeah, AJ too. Yeah, because even though his amateur career was not that long, but he beat a lot of guys there that were far more experienced than him.
Yeah, he got a gold medal and all that shit. So like, I just feel like I don't like for my personal like ATG thing. Like when I say like 25% of the Hall of Fame, I think are ATGs. None of those guys are I go, well, what do they do with the amateurs? Even that whether or not a bunch of them are amateur standouts, but I don't take that into account, right?
Yeah. Hey, Tony made an interesting comment here. He says that Shields used to call herself the GOAT solely based on her beating Loma's record, being 3-division champion at his fast time rate. So speed speed is a must matter. I mean, yeah, I guess, but it depends on
not how fast she did it. Like first off, that's what she called herself, and who cares what she called herself. And then the second part of it, she didn't say she did it faster than Lomachenko because she didn't. And then thirdly, like it just literally has nothing to do with how fast you do something. As long as you do it, you did it.
Right. And how long you could do, how long you maintain that longevity based off that.
Yeah, I'm not. I think that is a legitimate metric. Like how long you stayed on top. Totally. Like what you did, who you beat, like what happened in the fights, like how did you beat them, kind of thing. And like, what was your longevity? Like all of that type of stuff, I think is a legitimate thing. Like one guy did it in 5 fights and another guy did it in 20 fights. That doesn't mean that you're better. Like, doesn't mean you're an ATG versus not an ATG. Like, it just doesn't make it doesn't matter at all. That's all. My only point. It's like totally immaterial.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is what it is. I know we're all going to agree to disagree, but again, like I said, I brought up Sugar Ray Leonard, so because like I said, he did it within a short time span too, within 30 fights. He beat 3 Hall of Famers and became undisputed champion. So, and he had a very lengthy amateur career, so you got to take that into account. So that's all I'm saying, man. I mean,
you can like if you didn't take that into account, right? Like, I think you can still get to ATG status even if you didn't take that into account. That's my point.
Right. Yeah, I get it. But like I said, though, you have to take into account that their amateur careers are very long. In fact, again, the WSB was semi-pro, where they score everything round by round, not by how many punches you land in a round, like an amateur point system is, usually. So, like I said, though, we agree to disagree, but my opinion stands. Alexander Usyk is an all-time great, regardless if he fights Fury, Wilder, or not. So he's already reached that status by beating AJ twice at heavyweight. So that's just my opinion. But other than that, I guess we had a long conversation. Yeah,
we did.
Look, what's up, bro?
No, we did have a long one and it got heated, and Jono got his knickers in a bunch. I do that to Jono. Come on, bro. Like, Jono, don't cry. Just because your boy in the ATG and you can't argue his way in there, it's not that big a deal. Other people, I'm sure a lot of people will call him an ATG. Just because I won't, don't trip.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we have our strong opinions. But shout out to Juno though, man. But
Yeah,
he
no,
is a great
that's Juno's
guy.
man.
I've known him for
I
years.
like Juno a lot.
Yeah,
Big boys
I know him for
boxing.
many years.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know him
and
for
he's been
many
doing it
years.
like
So
that dude is like he's dedicated. He don't give a fuck about any like anyway. I like John a lot. I'm not even gonna go to it, but
yeah, like I said though, he's a great guy. We respect each other's opinions. We respect each other. Yeah. At the end of the day, we try our best not to shout over each other, but hey, we get spirited, so it is what it is. But let me see. Tony Reviews is trying to quote. He quote Clarissa Shields. Say, look, Clarissa Shields' quickest 3 division champion boxing history after defeating Van Habozian. Well,
okay.
is that true? I mean, let me see. Let's take a look at that.
So here's the thing.
Right,
so here's really the thing. Like straight the fuck up, just so I can help Tony out with his cognitive dissonance. I don't know who does his thinking for him, but Clarissa Shields is an ATG in women's boxing. Yeah. Lomachenko is not an ATG at all. Just to help you out, regardless of what she calls herself, she is definitely an ATG in women's boxing. Okay? It has nothing to do with what she calls herself or what the fuck Loma's got going on.
Well, I mean, to your point, yeah, women's boxing, the variables are measured a lot different than men's boxing. So I see where you're going with that. Seeing where you're going with that. So
it's kind of like this weird. Anyway, it is what it is. This likes chopping it up with you always. I'm glad I got the panel, and I didn't mean to offend any of your other panelists or guests. They're I said, we can go back and forth now forever. I know that he like whatever. I was too much for him today. Apologies.
Nah, it's all good, man. But at the end of the day, it's all about trying to keep that level of respect and let somebody finish their point. Look, I get we all cross, we shadow over each other. I get it because we want to get our points in. But at the end of the day, it's all about respect. It's all about having proper decorum. So, yeah, it's good having you on, man. I really appreciate it. So we're always going to chop it up. But
Cali. All right,
okay.
Peace, man.
Cali, peace out. Peace out to Stockton and Oakland. All right, man. Hey, let me see. Tony Reviews. I know he got one last quote before Smoke left. He said Loma is ATG. No matter how much you hate him, cry more of a Loma. The point was speed, and Clarissa calls herself the GOAT because of the speed of that record. Well, it is true. She did refer to the fact that what she did in a short amount of time span. So, but to Smoke's point, he's saying that, well, how could you use that as a measuring stick? Because women's boxing is measured at a different rate than men's. But I do see your point, Tony. But at the same time, I do see what Smoke is coming from with that with his rebuttal. But you're both right, and you're not wrong. Both of you guys are not wrong. But I do see both of your point of views. But yeah, it was a good spirited debate. Shout out to Smoke. But again, it is his opinion. But Oleksandr Usyk is all-time great. He's an all-time great. I'd say about 95% of the people will agree that he is. Regardless if he fights Fury or not, he is an all-time great. There is no disputing that. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And yes, you have to take into account that he's had over 350 amateur fights. He's been in the WSB. He's been in European national champion. He's an Olympic gold medalist. He beat all the elite fighters there at amateurs that we see right now in the professional ranks. He's beaten them all. So, yes, we have to take that into account, whether Smoke likes it or anybody else likes it or not. So, it is what it is. So, speed is measured the same. Loma is an ATG due to the fact that he's been the fastest male fighter to be. Yeah, that is true. And he's beaten a lot of names there. Gimel Regenbau, who else? Gary Russell Jr., Rocky Martinez, Jason Sosa, Nicholas Walters. Who else is beaten there? Jose Pedraza, Jorge Linares, Richard Commey, Nakatani. So yeah, Lomachenko's beaten a lot of big names in a short time span. So yeah, there is an argument that you make him as an ATG. So yeah, there's definitely a good argument there. KO says the facts we measure women's boxing like that means that we're using it as a measuring stick. Nah, dude, we don't want to use that racial talk here, KO. It has nothing to do with Usyk's ethnicity. It's just that Smoke has a strong opinion. That's just the way it is. All right, it has nothing to do with race or nationality. It has nothing to do with that. But I just think that, like I said, though, that's why I asked Smoke about the Sugar Ray Leonard question, because Sugar Ray Leonard did a lot of things that accomplished a lot in his short pro career. So why can't Usyk get the same benefit of the doubt when he did in the short pro career? So that's all the point I was making. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead. No, that's not true. Because Smoke has criticized a lot of black fighters. Look, he's criticized a lot of. He's criticized Anthony Joshua a lot. He's criticized Terrence Crawford a lot. So we can't use that. You can't use that against him. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. It was great to have you guys on, especially the panel. I had Big Boys Boxing, Juno. Shout out to him. I had Smoke, and I had Tony Reviews, KO, and I have Joe Host in the chat. Shout out to Choos. I had Boxing Lounge, Boxing Learner, Mr. Boxing Today. He was in here for momentary. Shout out to Mr. Boxing Today. Actual Facts. BG London. Shout out to him. So other than that, yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up, guys. DGO, I am out. Until next time. Peace.